Hey there. Oh, somewhat normal lighting again. It's different. I now have a light up here as well as over here because I bought a replacement. And then I fixed my own problem. Thank you, Elgato Tech Support, and thank you, shitty firmware. So, yeah, I used the spare that I bought that was going to be the replacement and just mounted it over here so I have even coverage now. So, hey Snap, hey Caboose, hey McSecular, Wither, boom, boom, boom. Empress FM gave you a tier 3 sub. You are the only tier 3 subscriber at present. FYI. Yes, that was Empress FM. Who did it just to prevent a chud from potentially purchasing it. All right. You literally were part of like a troll slash grift slash fucking with a dude. And you are the direct beneficiary of the first tier 3 sub on the channel. Congratulations. And hey there, Karina and Amorous and Viva, of course, was here first and foremost. Kick some music back on. Pepe Arms. I've got berries because I was feeling some like GERD, stomach acid stuff. It usually happens when I need to put something in my stomach. So some pineapple, some raspberries, some blackberries. I'm gonna be snacking. It's a night show. Put that over there. I don't think you guys have ever seen my beloved kitchen towels. There's one of my beloved kitchen towels. Here. This is quite literally how I spend most of my day, with a towel over my shoulder. It's just habit at this point. So much time I spend in the kitchen preparing a lot of my food. Either way, good, cheap kitchen towel. So I'm thinking that tonight I kind of wanted to watch another Peter Zahan video, but I wanted to watch a more current one. And he has a lecture he gave, a speech he gave at the Land Investment Expo this year. And it is, I got through a third of it so far. I was out walking listening to a part of it. Something Hitchhiker's Guide reference. That one right up there, oh, this shoulder is still so fucking sore from the vaccine. That one up there, literally up, that one, literally has a gray 42 printed on it. I am never far from my towel. Hey, real. If shit goes down, I got a towel. Wherever you are, fucking Douglas, wherever you are. God, miss that, man. Don't want to be caught out without knowing where your towel is. Oh, hang on. I have a message over here. All right. I had to reorder that copy of the activist Dao De Ching with her. I'm still going to send you a copy. But like literally it just never arrived and they had to cancel the order, so I had to order a new one. RV with a 6-month. Look at that. RV, thank you. Solid, Duffy. So yeah, I was thinking Wither, I heard my name. If you didn't catch what I said to you, Wither, that was the important part. Did you hear what I said to you? Amorous. Yeah, he's that guy. Snappy. Thank you for the 4 months. Thank you kindly. Happy to help. Yeah, Amorous. Peter Zeihan is. We watched it on stream actually. And then we had Irish Swede come on stream and verify the veracity of a lot of the financial and capital data segments of the lecture. Whether the copy of the activist Dao De Ching that I was going to send you never made it, and they had to cancel the order. I've just ordered a new one. I still plan on sending you a copy. I just wanted to let you know that I didn't forget about you. But supply lines fucked me. And you're not getting my copy. Yes. So yeah, we watched that video actually on stream, and then we cross-checked some of it. Yes, Wither, I got a refund. Yes. We cross-checked some of it using some in-community expertise, etc., etc. Well, this is the thing, Amorous. I went back and watched some of his old videos, like 2016, 2014. 2014 was the best one. He's a geopolitical analyst who is employed by large industry to create speculative models as to potential shifts in the future. This is his job. Like, that's literally his job. He does a lecture circuit, of course, to get his name out there. But the fact of the matter is yeah, what he is actually employed as is somebody who does speculative work. He is technically classified as a geopolitical analyst with specialties in demography, economics, and immigration. Right? He follows the flow of goods, services, money, and people. All right, this is what he's paid to do. And I watched his 2014 video where he made a whole bunch of those sort of speculative predictions. Whew, he was uncomfortably close. He was uncomfortably close. He really did. He called Venezuela straight out. Straight out. He's like, yeah, that'll happen. He called Crimea straight up. He called he called a lot of the Chinese reputation collapse straight up. He called how Britain is going to behave differently towards the EU in the coming years, and how you're going to begin to see a shift in policy in how the UK perceives and interacts with the EU straight up. Yeah, it was fascinating watching this and going along, be like, he's good at what he does. He's good. And I was familiar with some of the demography work already. He was spot on that as well. And Swede came on and he's like, oh yeah, this financial predictions. Yeah, we've been seeing the same presentation go around for 10 years now. So Swede was like, oh yeah, that's verified information. Like that, the veracity of that isn't in question at all. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to listen to him a little more. I want to hear what he has to say. Like now, moving forward. And I think that would be good for us. I called the rise of nationalism before it did, so props to that guy. And populism. He called the populists. That'll be part of tonight's presentation. You'll see. He thought it would still increase. Well, unfortunately, it somehow leveled in the past 4 years. I've noticed more nationalists as Wither. Yeah, I think I've given, like, if you're a regular in this community, and by the way, when we do watch this video, I'm going to invite a couple of people on air. We can sort of have pause, discuss sort of moments. So if you think you want to get involved in this conversation, start getting ready now. So, yeah, Duffy, that video didn't take into account a couple of really critical things about Russia I found fascinating. It glossed over some of their demography aspects and their skill collapse. Russia has had a skill-based collapse in the last 5 years or so, and it's only getting worse. The engineers they need to take advantage of that situation, they don't have, and it would take 25 years to train them up. And I'm not joking about that 25 years too. It would take 25 years to train them up. And so they won't be in a position to truly maximize the benefit from those potential gains of climate change that video was predicting. And I thought it was fascinating that they sort of like ignored that aspect, that Russia actually isn't in a position to take advantage of that. And so, yeah, I don't know what that will look like. Again, I'm not a geopolitical analyst. I don't make speculative predictions because I don't have models to build them or work off of. But I did notice that. Who knows? China is, we'll see. So before we get into the Peter Zeihan video, there is one thing that I want to talk about because this is a thing that I talk about. And yes, I just paused the music. Let me find it here. Thank you. All right. Copy link address. Thank you. Yes, I'm over 18. Over 18. All right. So where can I scroll to without getting a TOS hit? I need to know for certain because this presentation switches on a dime. There it is. Okay, so I need to memorize this image and this image so I know not to go any further. Okay. No, Karina. What we have first, today is the anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre. This is the anniversary. China is a day ahead. It technically is, well, it is, and my birthday is real. Nice. Today is the anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre. Yes, the thing that never happened. The thing that you are forbidden from memorializing in China. You cannot come out and mention it. You cannot talk about it in any official capacity. Any mention of it will get you immediately shut down on the Chinese interwebs, as it were. The Great Firewall specifically looks for this sort of stuff. All right. Now, we don't know the total body count. What we do know is that there was a British intelligence services wire that went out that got classified and then declassified later, that said the number was probably north of 10,000 people. So that's the best number we have to work off of. We do not actually know how many people were executed en masse for this protest. We do know due to photographic evidence, and so you know there is 111 photos in this Imager album. I'm going to scroll down for a ways, and then I'm going to put the link in chat, and you can view the rest yourselves. I'm going to warn you ahead of time. If you're particularly sensitive, if you aren't good at compartmentalization, if you have depression or you have any sort of violence in your past, do not fucking look at this album. It's just don't. Just don't. Trust me on this one. Now, if you're a desensitized, cynical fuck who compartmentalizes especially well, and you know gore and shit that will potentially stick with somebody else for the rest of their life if they see it, will just sort of be water off your back, by all means, go for it. But in 1988, university students, good caboose. University students began to gather in Tiananmen Square and protest. What we do know is that that guy we talk about all the time in reference to tankies and capitalism in China, Dengism, D-E-N-G, Deng is the one who gave the go-ahead on this. Deng is the one who basically said, yeah, take them out. So not only is he responsible for the rampant corruption and capitalism in China as we see it today, he's also responsible for the Tiananmen Square massacre. Okay. Yes, caboose, it is. So with that being said, what we'll do is we'll start looking at some of these photos. This was May 4th, 1989. This is when it started. If you don't know, the protests happened over a month. It wasn't just people surged into Tiananmen Square, the army broke it up, and they drove over one dude with a tank. This was a series of long, protracted protests that got bigger and bigger and bigger. It started spreading to other areas of China, to other major city centers. It became a threat to the ruling party, legitimately. They started getting press coverage, not just domestic, but international. And the international press coverage was the breaking point because Deng was having a summit. And they couldn't afford to appear weak. They couldn't afford to have these pro-democracy protesters in their streets and in their city centers. They needed this shutdown. So the international press and the domestic press coverage actually exacerbated this situation. Okay. The Central Academy of Drama, right? The schools started coming out. The universities started coming out. Oh, it's this genius again. Hey, I'm going to do this once, and then there's multiple mods in chat. I'm just going to do this once. Sindrake, anarchism is not about chaos. Anarchism is actually highly organized. Anarchism is about a collapsing down of hierarchical power structures into what's called a heterarchy, or a hierarchical organizational structure, horizontal. It is a philosophical and ideological challenge to unjust power and authority mechanisms throughout society and the dismantling, replacement, or elimination thereof. It is a lens of analysis. It is not utopian in any nature, nor is anarchism a monolith. It is a network of ideas, and we much prefer it that way. So I will now begin ignoring you. Anyway, so the protests continued. Now it's not university. Yes, snowflakes. That's definitely what's going on. It's not a prescriptive educational environment in which political science and facts take precedence, but your descriptive definitional sets definitely should take precedence. Anyway, so the protests keep growing. The age range starts changing. It's not just university students anymore. And this is how you build a revolution. This is terrifying. When young people come out, you get protests. When the older generations start to support the young people in their protests, you get revolutions. This is a problem for the CCP. This is right around the time that they started saying, oh, fuck. Encampments. They started making semi-permanent structures within these spaces. This is when you have to admit that they're in for the long haul. This isn't just 2 days. We're going to be here for a while. They're committed. Sharing information. This also got them into big trouble with the CCP and Deng's cohorts as well. Basically, they started teaching each other how to protest, how to be subversive, and things like individual autonomy, democratic principles. Yes, they started sharing. Workers' parties. Workers' parties. The workers started coming out. The salt of the earth, right? The ones that are supposed to be the backbone of the CCP. They started coming out. Medical students. They started setting up frontline, impromptu medical facilities in the field to ensure the safety and survival of the people who are taking there. Oh, Caboose, trust me, it's been a long collection. Okay. Field medics. Uh-oh. Symbolism. The goddess of democracy. They start erecting statues. They start erecting symbols to democratic principles. Symbols are a double-edged sword. They can be used to distract and dissuade, but they can galvanize, they can rally. They can give people a meaning that they wouldn't have otherwise had. Shit like this. Where am I over here? Yeah. So shit like this is dangerous as fuck. This is a problem. This is a problem for anybody who's an authoritarian who's watching. Guess what? Now we're throwing rocks at buildings. Now we're throwing rocks at communist headquarters. Lines begin to be drawn, literally. There's now a front line for the military. Now there's a front line for the protesters, right? Literally, and you can see in the back, there's more of them. And there will soon be many, many more. Okay? Children. It's shit like this that they didn't want getting out. This is bad optics. Lecturing the soldiers. Don't want anyone to break ranks. Better keep an eye on that. Let's bring in some heavier artillery. Let's start rolling in tanks. Some of the weapons that we know they used. Everybody knows this photo. Everybody knows this photo. We still don't know who the man is. It's lost to history. We will never know who that man is. But here's what most people don't know. It didn't end with them running him over. He actually climbed on the tank. Hey, Skoru. This is one of the protesters holding back part of the mob after one of the soldiers injured one of the female protesters. They were going to tear him limb from limb. This could have been an inciting incident. It turned out not to be. We would have maybe a different view if the protesters swarmed the soldiers and began literally like mob ripping them from limb from limb, a limb from limb, right? Pleading. It's emotional. They wanted their freedom. They wanted their say. This is when the bartering started happening. Basically, the protesters started feeding the soldiers. They started providing them with subsistence materials that the state was not providing the soldiers. Food, water, snacks, that sort of thing. The protesters knew what they were doing. Yeah, Caboose, it is. They started denying access to areas. They started beginning to block areas of mass transit utilizing the military hardware. Slimmin, welcome. We're not doing much anarchist theory right now, right at the moment. But we are talking about and looking at pictures from the Tiananmen Square massacre. And it's a thing I've paid a lot of attention to over the years. And so today is the anniversary. And so we're going through a collection of images that everybody thinks they've seen a lot of the images from Tiananmen Square. And I got to say, having seen probably some of the largest and having one of the largest collections of photographs from Tiananmen Square, most people haven't seen most of the photos. So we're just going through some of them. I have to stop. I'm going to share the link to this album that is very much not safe for life. Forget not safe for work. This is not safe for life. You will see horrific crimes against humanity if you look at the rest of this album. But I'll stop before then because TOS, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, after that is TOS. Yep, straight up. I cannot show them. But I will provide the link, and you are duly warned. Depending on your sensibilities, you may remember some of these images could easily be burned into your brain for the rest of your life. Just know that. But this is where they start shutting it down. This is when shit starts getting real. They're given the go order. All right? This is when people start getting active. This is when fires start breaking out. This is when soldiers start beating protesters. Okay? This is when the protest starts to look like what we know protests look like. It wasn't casualties on just one side. They got a piece of the military too. They lost a whole bunch of tanks. They lost a whole bunch of armored personnel carriers. They lost soldiers. It wasn't a one-sided battle. It was a massacre, but it wasn't a complete shutout. It's just a coincidence that peaceful protests always get violent when police intervene. No, yeah, it's just total coincidence. All right, this is honestly, if I had to, I wasn't there. We don't know what happened here. But having been, honestly, it looks like the woman pleading in the center. We can't do this. We need to, it's that sort of situation. Shit's getting real. That was right at my TOS. There's the album. There's like 50 more photos after that. Here's what we do know. We do know that tanks ran over people in such great numbers to such extent that they were turned into mush. We do know that flamethrowers and accelerants and fuels were used to functionally cremate many of the bodies strewn throughout the area and turned to ash and smaller pieces and turned to mush by the tanks. The remnants of the protesters was fire hosed into the gutters surrounding the area. It is one of the most horrific and brutal displays of authoritarianism in contemporary human existence. It's rare that we've seen anything like that this side of the world wars. Today is the day that we remember, especially as anarchists. This is what it looks like. Okay? When the tankies and all these fucking idiots that are like Twitter leftists that love to rock the hammer and sickle and talk about how Russia and China have done nothing wrong and how they're bastions for the working class and how, let me just tweak something here. There we go. How they're bastions for the proletariat and the working class and how it's all just CIA and Western propaganda. It's photos like those that I hang on to that are the work of stronger people. That's the reminder. Those tankies, they're full of shit. Those photos are proof of it. So, Tiananmen Square. The last time there was a popular uprising in China. Imagine what would happen if it were millions rather than hundreds of thousands. Exactly, Viva. Imagine. It's potentially coming. Given what we know about Chinese demographics, Caboose, you don't want to hear what they have to say about those photos. Tell you what. If you're up for it, jump on the line. We'll have the conversation because I've done just that. I've shown them to tankies before. Basically what happens is two things. One, it didn't happen. Two, if it did happen, they had it coming. It's that simple. It's terrifying in its disgustingness. They will deny the reality put before them, or they will just recontextualize it. Those were pro-democracy protesters in their beloved communist regime. What they don't understand was that the very thing that was being protested, the administration, the vanguard class at that time that was being helmed by Deng, was going to be the fall of their socialist experiment. Deng was going to bring about the capitalist revolution in China. Deng would be the linchpin. Deng directly led to China having as many billionaires and corporations and international corporations stationed there. Deng was the direction that they were headed. And these people were protesting fundamentally against that regime. They could have potentially held on to their socialist experiment a little bit better had they had the ability to vote for it instead. But due to the nature of the Chinese administration, due to the nature of the administration of that nation state, they had no choice. Deng drugged them kicking and screaming straight into neoliberal capitalism. State run, of course, but hey. All right. Usually POS means piece of shit, but if you meant TOS, then that's terms of service. Oh, yeah, POS. All right, yeah. That's piece of shit. I hate when people never concede to points because they'd rather be a piece of shit than admit they're wrong. And fucking hashtag tanky logic, and then Viva with the Uyghurs command. And it's just Uyghur, yeah. The classic Uyghur command, it's not happening. It's imperialist propaganda, and if it is happening, it's not that bad. And if it's that bad, it's for their own good. And if it isn't for their own good, they had it coming. If they didn't have it coming, you've done worse. Part of what I do as a contemporary anarchist who at this point I do. I train, I create new anarchists. That has been a big portion of what I do. I create new anarchists. I try and give them a piece of their history. It's the anarchist milieu has long been engaged within leftist spaces and long had their brains blown out when they weren't looking. It's the truth of the matter. And China is one of those. Tankies are some of those. Maoists are some of those. Stalinists are some of those. Leninists are some of those. Trotskyists are some of those. Hoxhayists are some of those. Right? This is the history of anarchism that you have to understand. These people can be your temporary allies to get something done. Sure. But remember, as soon as you turn your back, this is what it looks like. They believe in using the state for force. They are authoritarians at the end of the day. They have no compunction nor see any problem at a ethical, meta-ethical, or even moralistic level with using violence in mass to enforce the will of the state on the people. And Tiananmen Square is one of the most recent and, shall we say, apparent examples of that happening. Every anarchist should be intimately familiar with Tiananmen Square, so you know what awaits you in that style of regime. McSecular, there isn't an authoritarianism command. Real burn, yep. I've talked at length about Catalonia. I've done a lot. Today is Tiananmen Square. Oh, Wavy. No, it was a redemption. It was actually a channel command. The tanky command is a channel command. And so chat can pop that up. Yeah, that's just chat can do a few things. They can change camera angles. They can do stuff. So yeah, that's what that was. It's just a chat command. Why did not that queue off? Give me 1 sec. I'll do it myself, Amorous, because the Leorin board wasn't open. For whatever reason, it didn't open. There's Breen. There's side cam. It's fixed already, Caboose. Yeah, it's actually a webcam. It's a Logitech Brio. So technically it's 4K, but its quality is wrong one. This is a DSLR, right? Like this is actually it's a Canon DSLR. So the quality coming off of this one is an entirely different ball game to quality coming off of this one. But yeah, occasionally people like to change the camera angle. One of these days, I'll wire the lights. So you fuckers can change like light colors and stuff. One of these days, I'll wire the lights into the system as well. But, all right. Let me see volume levels here. RGB, can we write programs for it? No, I'm not going as far as Matt did with did he do that for a computer file or his own channel? I forget, but yeah, Matt did that. Would you go visit Tiananmen Square today if you got the chance, like post-COVID, obviously? Well, I've got oh, Jesus Christ, I've got my second vaccine down. Oh, right? Like, it's like, oh, I can touch back here on this one. This one, it's like, oh, it's work. It's work. Dude, that shoulder is sore as fuck. The Christmas tree. Saw that video. Yeah. Yeah. Network of ideas to control a group of people to conform to an ego using social punishment to enforce said conforming need bait. Yeah. Look, oh, this poor shoulder. Hang on. There we go. I can get it up there. Oh, the deltoid is just, it was last night. I got it done yesterday. By like late last night, it was swollen, like legitimately swollen. And hurt so fucking much. There we go. Yeah. I just, Jesus fucking Christ. So, I can get up there. Just gotta use your thumb, that's all. Wilhelm. Pineapple, raspberries, blackberries. Info? I try not to do that. I've got a couple of hot takes that are designed to like suss some stuff out in chat and figure people out and poke and prod them. But they're at least usually in line with what I believe in some way, shape, or form. I try not to do the devil's advocate bullshit. Oh, and yeah, would I visit Tiananmen Square? God, I probably get myself into trouble. No. Just like Thailand, where I know I'd insult the monarch because it's illegal to insult the monarch, and I think that's fucking retard. Sorry, I'm not supposed to say those words, right? It's fucking stupid. Fucking stupid. I'm sorry, I can't insult your king, who, by the way, is white trash. Yes, I know he's tie, but he's white trash. Have you ever seen that dude? Fucking, like, stained wife beaters, like, jerseys and shit. Like, it's just, like, how are you the king of a country? And you can't insult him? Yeah, I know, right, Wilhelm? I'm sorry, I want that word back. Everybody knows I want that word back. I want that word back. It's a good fucking word. It's got the hard R and the t-d. It's a good word. I want it back. So, yeah. Yeah, I probably shouldn't go to Tiananmen Square just because I know me and I know how my brain works, and chances are, oh, no, okay, not that one. The ableism one. I'm autistic. Can I hand out the R-slur pass? I mean, I'm gay and I'm not even supposed to say the F one anymore, right? Even though I'm a big fan of it. I got a gun pointed at me because I took a photograph and there was a government palace in the background once. Jesus Christ, Amaris. Yeah, it's shit like that will get me in trouble. For sure. I'm a good anarchist. Shit like that just... It's like, you're not allowed to take a photo. It's the first instinct I have. Like, you know, you're not allowed to insult the king. Like, as soon as I set foot onto their sovereign soil, the first words out of my mouth would be, fuck your king. He's a piece of shit, white trash, wannabe motherfucker. You bunch of bootlicking supplicants. Rise up and overthrow his punk bitch ass. Right? Like that. I just know me. So, yeah, it's best I don't go to some of these places. HD Cold Fusion, trust me, I'd be on board with that. Info. Interesting, yeah. I can't not do it. Free stuff you can get to Minneapolis. Oh, Estrella. Kat and I ran this one through the other night, actually. No more LGBTQIA+. I think that's the current iteration of the initialism. Only Q. Right? This is my plan. If you're gay, if you're lesbian, if you're trans, if you're bi, if you're intersex, if you're asexual, if you're aromantic, hey, that's me too. You're queer. We're just going to take the word queer. There's too much infighting amongst the LGBTQ community at large, right? There's too many divisions. We've started subdividing, and now there's infighting. We need to fix that. No more LGBTQIA+, right? Only Q. We're all queer now. We're all just fucking queer. And here's the plan. We're going to steal the letter Q, just like we stole the fucking rainbow. You motherfucker, we took a natural phenomenon, right, that was supposedly ordained by God. Yeah, covenant, sign of covenant of God, whatever. We stole a natural phenomenon and made it gay globally. Okay? Russia sanctioned a fucking ice cream company because they made a rainbow color. Like, it wasn't even the full rainbow flag for, like, the queer movement, right? Just a rainbow in their ice cream, and Russia starts freaking out, right? You paint a rainbow anywhere on this planet now, and people think gay. All right? We stole the fucking rainbow. I'm coming for the letter Q. I'm tired of those stupid QAnon idiots having the letter Q associated with them. Just like Proud Boys. Go look up what Proud Boys will get you on Reddit or something like that. Search for the subreddit Proud Boys and see if you don't find just a bunch of flaming dudes in leather gear and fucking thongs and shit, right? We stole Proud Boys too, all right? I'm coming for the letter Q next, all right? I don't care if you're trans. I don't care if you're intersex. I don't care if you're queer now. We're all fucking queer. We're taking the letter Q, and we're going to cease this bullshit infighting that the LGBTQ community is getting up to now. If you're a lesbian, you're cool with the trans. If you're trans, you're cool with the gays, all right? Like, no more infighting. Everybody has their own thing. You're allowed to make your own decisions for yourself. Nobody's phobic of your shit just because you don't want to participate in their shit, all right? get over it, erase the lines, steal the Q, and fuck the QAnoners, and we'll add another interesting win to our collective win pile at this point. I'm going for it. I'm coming for the letter Q next. I am gay, and fucking there is apparently a hidden gay globalist gay agenda. The new globalist gay agenda is we're coming for the letter Q. Hey, Frackle, thank you for the 8 months. Some dumb, I knew it. Yes, Cold Fusion. It really, really does actually piss me off that we have to keep adding letters. When you subdivide your community that much, and you can argue that it's representation and representation matters. Sure. I'm not saying you shouldn't be represented. I'm saying you're creating artificial subdivisions between it, like within your group, within your ideological or philosophical group. And when you start doing that, you have infighting, and infighting is the death of a movement. All right. I've seen this too many times. I'm old enough to know what this looks like. Okay, you're all queer. All right, just hold hands, get along. You don't have to like each other. You don't have to love each other, but you have to get each other's backs and you have to get along. That's it. Global queer conquest. McSecular, like no borders. Exactly. McSecular gets it. McSecular gets it. Like, knock that shit the fuck off. Yep. That's the new shit I'm going to be hammering home over and over. Right? I'm going to have, there's going to be a transition time. There's going to be learning. Right? Like, because I'm gay. Like, that's how I refer to myself. I'm a gay man. Like, but I've never really used queer. It's not a word in my vocabulary by and large. So you will catch me out many times in the future, I'm sure, saying gay when I should be saying queer as per my own agenda. But there's going to be a learning curve and a transition time from me as well. Skullaru. Oh, Jesus. Skullaru, thank you for the gift sub, though. The True Q faction. Exactly. I want it back. I'm going to steal it from them. Yeah, I think the letter Q is really cool as a letter too. And I'm tired of Q being associated with those fucking idiots. So I want it back. We're going to take it. If anybody can steal the letter Q, it's the gays. Okay? The queer community at large has already stolen the rainbow. We're taking the letter Q. If QueerAnon is now a thing, does where we go one, we go all just means that we meet at a swingers club? I'm okay with it, Viva. Yeah. WWG1WGA now essentially is code for a giant queer orgy. That's what that's code for now. Just a giant queer orgy. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Cold Fusion. Nobody in the gay community, nobody in the queer community. See? Told you there was going to be a transition time. Nobody in the queer community is under any illusions. I've never met a single person who is within that community that's like, oh, GE loves us now because they put a rainbow flag on their logo on their Twitter account. Clearly, they've changed hiring practices and are no longer doing business in Russia, Saudi Arabia, Chechnya, Oman, the UAE, China. Yeah, sure. Nobody in the community is under any illusions. We all know, right? It's like you're just pandering to me. So, yeah, then you see their Middle Eastern Twitter account for sure. So that doesn't even really factor for us. Oh, jeez. Let's see. One sec here. I mean, that's screw it. I'm not even gonna get into it. I mean, in my lifetime, there's been so many changes on that one. Oh, it is interesting getting older and seeing the spectrum, seeing the linear transitions over the timeline. It is interesting. That complaint that you're making is actually progress. If you knew, I mean, when AAVE, African American Vernacular English, for those of you, when it used to be known as Ebonics back in the late 80s and back in the 80s and the 90s, it was a sign of lack of intelligence. It was a sign of lack of formal education. It was a sign of being lesser than, right? Anybody who used it, plain and simple. That point is actually progress for it. As weird as that sounds, that's actually progress. The fact that anybody can use it and get lauded for it means somebody's making inroads with it. Maybe we can resolve the glaring hypocrisy of that situation one day. But hey. All right. Corporate woke is fun, hands cops coke, and UN police brutality. That was, which one was that? It was a Jenner, right? Kylie, I think. I don't know these people, but I think that was Kylie, right? I don't know which one she is. I couldn't pick her out of a lineup. No. Skuru, you just have to accept that it's a game of inches and you're asking for miles. Sometimes you just have to be a little more pragmatic and realistic. Yeah, it's rough. I know. It really is. I'm not being condescending. I trust me. I'm a fucking anarchist. Trust me. I wish I could make the progress that I want to make, but it's not going to happen. So you just have to accept it for what it is sometimes. As pain in the ass as that is. All right. 18-wheel dragon. Welcome, by the way. Queer by definition means strange. I'm strange, but strange does that mean that I can be a part of QueerNon? Well, you see, maybe later we'll grandfather you in and spread it around a bit. But like I said, I plan on stealing it. All right, just like the gays took the rainbow. All right, we came for the fucking rainbow and we took it. All right, now, if you want to fly a rainbow flag, that's by all means, but we'll just consider you an ally. If you want to call yourself queer and not actually be one of the OGs on this one, by all means, welcome to the club. Big old tent. You've probably got some eccentricities and some fetishes and some kinks that you know, aren't exactly biblical sex aligned, that aren't that conservative. So you probably will fit in the tent just fine. But yeah, we're taking it. Wouldn't that be Metro? Hey, metrosexuals are a whole other ballgame. Metro sort of evolved into a more feminized version of itself as well. That was interesting to see. That sort of metrosexuals sort of opened the gate up to a whole other level of masculinity tapping into femininity in this society. Have you made a vision board? No. I've never made a vision board in my life. You don't have to make the change. You have to make people make other people make the change. Yeah. You mean Goofy for Jesus? Really, Australia? Yeah, no. The world, the universe doesn't work that way. Oh, Jesus. Dude, let's go. This normally a. Hang on, watch this. All right, we'll get that one up there. This may be the first final stretch for a while. You can redeem it, but I'm just gonna kick your points back. Let's see. My wife is bi. My brother is gay. My son is trans. So I support and love the community because it's family. You fucking... Are you kidding me? You're automatically in at that point. You're fucking surrounded by us. Should Socrates just have gone to pray more instead of attending the symposium? That's hilarious. All right. So, with that in mind, should have yelled more at democracy. With that in mind, or with a mind towards bringing a little of the actual world into the anarchistic spaces, into the leftist spaces, into online leftist spaces, because I don't like echo chambers. And so we consume a lot of our own headlines and a lot of our own content and a lot of our own theory, especially around these parts. Now, as opposed to other people's echo chambers, I let other opinions in, right? Like that's part of how I combat us from becoming an echo chamber. But what I'm going to do, or what we're going to do together, is watch the Life After Globalization Peter Zeihan video from the 2021 Land Investment Expo. These are people that are literally looking to profit, maximize profit, and exploit land investments on a global scale that he is speaking to. All right. So just like the last time when he was talking to a room full of corporate types and business types, again, that is who he is talking to. He's talking to arguably some of the worst of those types this time around. And so, but he is there to impart knowledge to them and predictions to them. Exactly. He's talking with the enemy that will benefit them. Now, I think this will benefit us. I think there's far too many people within leftist spaces that have dreams of this sort of like anarchistic commune or a communal or a communistic commune, and there's going to be some sort of leftist uprising in America that's going to spark revolutions across the globe. This is unrealistic. It's just unrealistic. Look, you can do plenty of anarchistic organizing. I've covered this hundreds of times at this point. In your local space, in the sort of mid space of like regional, state, county, maybe even state spaces. Human beings aren't ready for this stuff on a global scale yet. We're just not. So like those sorts of dreams and wishes are kind of fruitless and pointless. But I think that this gentleman actually can impart a level of pragmatic and realistic knowledge into our community that can benefit us. And that way, when we look forward as a community, we can start to realistically approach some of these problems. Understand who our allies are moving forward, who our enemies are moving forward? Who is the protagonist and antagonist of this story? Who is best to ally with? Who may we be allied with now that we need to reassociate or, outmode that association with? Because power dynamics are just that, dynamic. If you haven't done your Foucaultian philosophy studies yet, and you're not up to speed on analyzing and reassessing and reforming power systems for yourself, then this is probably a good place to start to understand, all right, how is this shit working? Who's actually in charge? Who is empowered? How are they making moves? What are the moves they're making? What are the ramifications of this on a global scale? What are the long-term ramifications? What are some of the short to mid-term ramifications of some of these globalized power dynamics that are shifting as we speak? Let's see. Will there be a hot tub stream? Wilhelm, maybe one day in the future. For real. Maybe one day in the future. So, with no further ado, let me toggle over. And like I said, if anybody wants to actually come on the line and discuss this partway through, the whole way through, at the end, by all means. And I'll pause it if I feel like saying something.
Hey everybody, it's been 2 years, but I'm back. It's been a crazy last 13 months, and I'm gonna say a lot of things that are probably gonna upset all of you today.
I don't wear Speedos. I have always, even when I was at like a pool party that's going to turn into an orgy premarital, I wear board shorts. I don't wear Speedos. I wear board shorts.
So I want to start with something simple, something that can unite us, something that we all agree on. So let's start with politics.
Sure, Estrella, if you've got a couple of grand, I could probably get them on the air.
Now, the American political system, I'm getting some feedback here, I'll move back. The American political system is designed on a first-past-the-post system, which is a fancy way of saying that if you want to win the seat, you don't need to get 50% of the vote, you just need one more vote than the other guy. And what this does, it encourages our parties to be big tent parties with lots of members, because it's all about getting one more. And so we get 3 sets, one for the Republicans, one for the Democrats, and then swing voters in the middle. This is how we have run things since our last political reshuffling in the 1930s. But for those of you who have not been in a coma for the last 5 years, you may have noticed things are breaking down. So let's start with Republicans. The business community likes reliability. We haven't had that. The national security voters actually preferred Hillary Clinton to Donald Trump because she was the only member of the Obama administration who had some concept as to how the world worked. Evangelicals looked at Trump like, you're on your what, 17th affair that we know of? One with a porn star. So they had a split. The pro-lifers know that Donald Trump had been an ironclad abortion rights supporter for 30 years. The fiscal conservatives couldn't look at his tax returns. This caused problems. But it was messier on the left. I mean, black Americans, they loved Barack Obama, and what's not to love? A 40-something black dude from Chicago. Loved him. Hillary Clinton was a 60-year-old white chick who'd already lived in the White House. Not interested. The socialists, I gotta admit, I love Senator Bernie Sanders. He's just so reliably and delightfully out of touch all the time. He hated Clinton. And to the degree that people who supported him showed up and voted all 4 years ago, most of them voted for Trump. The unions despise free trade. They like Trump on merits. Pro-choicers had the opposite issue with Donald Trump of the pro-lifers because they saw him flipping sides. And then in the middle, the Catholics just looked at both sides and wanted to take a shower. And here's where we actually ended up 4 years ago.
All right. This was what elected Donald Trump. This is it. This is what it looked like. This was the voting field.
The lines got blurred. Factions were in motion, which means that the old way of thinking of right versus left no longer really applies to this country. So let's look at this from a different point of view. 2x2 matrix. If you're at the bottom, you think the government should play a role in regulating social morals. If you're at the top, you want the government out of your personal life. If you're on the right, you want the government out of your wallet. And if you're on the left side, economic liberals, you think that the government should play some sort of role in managing
Oh no, they're populists.
the economic system, and that requires taxes. And of course, if you're in a
They
corner,
almost
you can
always
combine
fall
these.
under that
So
category.
if you're in the top left, a social liberal and an economic liberal, you look forward to the glorious day when all private property has been confiscated and we're all wearing government-issued gunny sacks. And if you're in the bottom right, an economic and social conservative, you think that the food stamp program is bad for character building, and in fact, starvation is probably the way to go. Here are our swing voters. Here's our traditional liberal alliance, and here's our traditional Republican alliance. Okay, everybody got that? I'm going to put everything up at the same time, and now let's go through where we are today. First things first, Donald Trump brought a political group out of the cold. The populists have always been the red-headed stepchild of the Republican coalition. They've always been in the background. They've never...
Rogue. Hey there, Rogue. Thank you for the 5 months. Look at you. Jesus. Thank you.
had a nominee.
Again, I tell you, they are the populists.
They've never even get into the cabinet.
He didn't
They're treated
omit
as
them.
a vote bank. And Donald Trump ended that. And so we got upwards of 15 to 20 million voters who hadn't voted in the last 5 elections who suddenly showed up. That's why Hillary lost. And they are now, in numerical terms, by far the single largest component of the Republican Party. And so the Republican Party today, well, actually I should say this, the Republican Party on January 5th had more voters in it than it ever has in history. What about the fiscal conservatives? George W. Bush ran 6 of the 8 largest fiscal deficits in the history of this country since World War II. Only to be topped by Barack Obama, only to be topped by Donald Trump, and that's before coronavirus. They don't have a horse to back anymore. Trump didn't like it when they tried to make something happen,
Shit.
and so he kicked them out of the party.
Mad Scientist, thank you for the resub. Thank you kindly. Poor Log Cabin Republicans. Oh, fuck them.
They're no longer represented in Congress, they are not in his administration, and they are not in existence in the Republican Party leadership. National security conservatives were treated very badly under Donald Trump. They were treated as political props. We will hear excuse me, we're going to hear about that, I have a feeling, here in about an hour. Between the way that they were treated, between the pardoning of contractors who were convicted of murder, between the various ways that the Donald Trump administration has pushed people out, whether it's Mattis or somebody else, we're talking about an entire institution, the military, the intelligence communities, law enforcement, who no longer feels that the president has their back. They also have been kicked out of Congress. They also have been kicked out of the administration. They also have been kicked out of the party. They're swing voters now too. The business community, social mores have evolved a lot in the last decade. Issues like inequality, issues like environmentalism are getting into boardrooms. And when we had 8 years of Obama and 4 years of Trump where nothing was really done on either of these issues, the the business community realized that they had to work with urban centers to push these issues along themselves.
And you actually see instances of that, and you can see it in our own community. And if you want to hear, about it, go talk to Irish Swede. It really has made it into the fucking boardroom. When Swede flew to Phoenix to talk to various investment possibilities for his investment bank, one of the questions that was on the survey that they issued them was, did you evict anyone during coronavirus? And if they answered yes, they didn't get an investment. They were off the fucking list. Hey, we're doing a capitalism. Viva, thank you for the resub. Yeah, if you want to keep the hype train going, go for it. On the sidewalk, you need to shut all that shit off. I'm telling you straight up, you need to shut that part of your brain the fuck off. You will not get what you need to get out of this lecture if you keep those sort of like leftist antivirus systems running. The information will not make it past those if you keep going. RV, thank you for the 1,000 biddies, the $10. Look at fucking RV. This guy is not on your team. He is not speaking to your team. He doesn't give a shit about your team. But what he's saying is true. What he's saying is accurate. And that's what you need to hear from this man. You need to hear from the other side of the aisle. Because this guy is accurate. He's got a good track record. He really does. He has called numerous predictions out. He's called his shot. He's done the Babe Ruth thing, and he fucking hits it out of the park. He really is good at what he does. He's a geopolitical analyst, and he's good. He does not agree with our political sensibilities whatsoever, but he's really good at his job. And if you want to know what China or Russia or us or our economy or immigration patterns are going to get up to, you probably need to hear something he has to say. His name is Peter Zeihan. If you go to, I think it's Zeihan.com, just Zeihan.com. Wavy, right now, you want to know who's attending the conference? People who think they can speculate on land investments and basically buy the land out from other people. The people who are going to this conference right here are the kind of people who speculate in development centers. They are responsible for things like gentrification. They're responsible for large-scale land purchases in developing nations, stuff like that. Yeah, some of the most odious people to people on the left. Okay, but you have to be able to get past that, because I hate to be the bearer of bad news here. We don't run this world. Communists don't run this world. Anarchists don't run this world. Okay? Syndicalists don't run this world. Leftists don't run this world. He's speaking to and from the position of those who run this fucking world. And if you want to know what they're up to, you got to get your hands dirty sometimes. You got to go to places like this. You got to listen to guys like this, because infrared isn't going to be the guy who determines the next 15 years of energy policy in the U.S. You know who is? Probably a bunch of people with connections to the petrochemical industry. Just the truth. So if you want to know what energy policy is going to look like, chances are you need to listen to some of these fuckers, whether you find them incredibly distasteful or not. FIFA, land back. Viva, solid work. Hey, we got a level 2 hype train going. And to Witherward, thank you for the follow. And Relan Bolbilan, thank you for the follow. No, info, we're one of the few places in the world that has mineral rights as a concept. The U.S. is one of the few locations globally that actually has mineral rights. So yeah, no, land is not always mineral rights. Sometimes you can buy land with mineral rights attached. Many times you cannot. It just depends.
And just like the fiscal and the national security conservatives, they butted head with Donald Trump. I think of those three groups as kind of the math and maps crowd of the Republican Party. And just like the national security and fiscal conservatives, they're no longer represented at any level of governance. It's not all bad for the Republicans by any stretch, because the populists by themselves added more voters than the Republicans lost with these three factions.
It's true,
and Trump's
Dragon.
not done. Unions, membership tend to be
Tony.
socially conservative. And that has manifested hugely in the last few years. For example, the president of the AFL-CIO was in the Oval Office publicly extolling the benefits of NAFTA 2 with Donald Trump on the day that Donald Trump was impeached by the Democrats in the House. The first time, not the second time. Second time's not till tomorrow.
Okay. Hey, leftists, the biggest fucking union in this country, the AFL-CIO, or I don't know if their membership still holds. The president of the AFL-CIO was in the Oval Office with Trump, glad-handing and supporting NAFTA 2.0 during the Trump administration. All right, this is your union leadership. This is what it looks like. All right, this guy has a lot of shit we need to hear. A lot of shit we need to hear.
They switched. We saw it in the voting numbers. Catholics. Catholics have kind of followed the evangelicals down the path towards deeper social conservatism. But unlike the evangelicals who were able to maintain their position as a single bloc, the Catholics had a really sharp split. And on one hand, you had Catholics who went in a more secular direction who are...
Oh, Estrella, no, he's not speaking to sustainability in this. This is not... That's not what he's selling this time. No.
Almost like lowercase c now, they're so secular. And on the other hand, you have a group of Catholics that are practically evangelical with their social beliefs. It's a smaller core, but is far more reliably pro-Trump Republican. The real surprise for a lot of people are the Hispanics. Hispanics, and particularly Mexican Americans. Second-generation Mexican Americans define themselves as gringos. They see themselves as white. They are the most socially conservative voting bloc in the United States, and Trump won them over time and time again. Trump actually captured most of the border communities in Arizona, New Mexico.
Yes. What part of that are you debating, Sidewalk? Because I'll fucking call Kat on the phone right now and get a Hispanic from like East LA on the line. And we will do this. They are intensely conservative. And yeah, Trump did win them as a voting bloc. I mean, the Catholicism alone gives them a core of conservatism. La Concha de su Madre, all boys. Yeah, border states in the South, very red, highly Hispanic. I mean, this isn't even usually, nobody debates that.
And Texas. The issue that they are most conservative about? Immigration. They like the wall. They want ICE to have power. The only type of immigration that Mexican Americans support is family reunification, and only for their families, nobody else. And Trump carried it. This today is the Republican Party, a social conservative core without the math and maps crowd. Now, things obviously are going differently with the Democrats. They haven't just lost the unions in the hope of getting the Hispanics. They've deliberately kicked out the socialists. Biden repudiated every single major socialist policy push during the debates. He brought Barack Obama out of retirement to put some bullets in the heads of a few people's political careers. But really the big thing is Kamala Harris. She's a freaking DA. She has put a lot of people in prison, and the socialists loathe her. And of the 700-ish appointees that Biden has announced so far, not one of them is from the socialist camp. And they're furious. They probably should be. Now, I'm sure some of you are like, wait, what about Portland? Well, let's talk about Portland. Now, this is exactly what it looks like. This is Darth Vader in a dress, riding a unicycle, playing a flame-throwing bagpipe. Portland is not normal. You should never look to Portland as an example of anything but Portland. Portland is no more representative of the United States than Disney World is. In fact,
I hate to be the bearer of bad news again, but he's right. He's right. As much as we like Portland as leftists, as much as we adore all of their eccentricities and their willingness to be in the streets forever, maybe, forever, right? They're not representative of the U.S. They're not. They're not even close to being representative of the U.S. It is legitimately accurate to say Portland is as representative of the U.S. as fucking Disneyland. It's just not. We have to come to terms with some of these harsh truths within our communities. Oh no, Viva. We should definitely keep it that way, but
you think of the Black Lives Matter movements, it dominated the news for a big chunk of last year, right?
Amherst,
Everyone
yes.
talks about how big they were, but if you eliminate the very first week of them when it all started, and Portland, we never had a single day where we had more than 100,000 people protesting nationwide. Usually it was in the low single digits of thousands. It's not that it's not important, it's not that we should ignore it, but it wasn't this giant movement that we all thought.
Except it's not, Zippy. It's not. Who actually said the rural thing? Amherst. Yeah, Amherst is closer to the truth there. What's representative of the U.S.? Probably not a U.S. city or anything like that, but probably the rurality of the U.S. is actually representative of the U.S. Sidewalk, but when you spread that across at this much landmass, it actually isn't that much. We need 500,000 protesting in a single city to make a dent, right? Like to make an impact. We need 500,000. We need 500,000 in Washington, D.C. Easy, right? 100,000 at peak across the entirety of the U.S., that equates to maybe in a metropolitan area, you might hit 9,000 or 10,000. It's not good.
We've just been in lockdown for coronavirus, and we're just, looking for anything to take up our time. So this is where we are. Social conservative core, a Democratic coalition is a little all over the place. Or that's where we were until January 6th. Now, in my opinion, most of the media has collapsed as a functional institution in this country. We're not getting the facts. We're not getting the context we need to put those facts into perspective. So of the many, many stories that came out on that day, I want to focus on one. The Capitol Police officer who died. He was murdered. He was hit in the head, bashed his skull in with a fire extinguisher. A different person then drug him out and threw him into the crowd where he was beaten to death. One of the people who beat him used a pole that had the American flag attached to the other end. We also know that the president was fully aware of the type, of the quality of people that he was attracting to Washington. And we also know that he danced, literally danced in the West Wing when he found out that the Capitol had been stormed. Now, I'm sure we're all going to take our own lessons from this, but for purposes of today and this conversation, I want to focus on one specific thing. The Republican Party no longer owns the law and order topic. And that changes things because the political faction most obsessed with that topic is this one. They have supply chains, they have staff, they have assets. And if they can't rely on the president for law and order.
To Witherword, hey, catch you later, Skillery. Just search literally for Trump danced Capitol on like DuckDuckGo or something like that. There was a video of him doing it.
Then they are in the wrong party. And if you look at the folks that Joe Biden is nominating for his cabinet, almost all of them are strongly pro-business. This may well be the face of the new Democratic Party. Now, I don't want anyone to get too excited or too dejected. This hasn't gelled yet. We are year 5 in a transition process that historically takes 8 to 12 years. And it's not like it's just us. Politics evolve with economic trends and technology and demographic shifts in geopolitics. And in the last generation, we have struggled through the end of the Cold War, massive wave of globalization, the rise of the digital age, and now probably we're on the verge of a massive deglobalization shift. Of course, we are going to do our politics differently. Think of France. 3 years ago, their equivalent of the Democrats and the Republicans both imploded at the same time. They are still picking through that wreckage. We will get through this. This will be our 7th political overhaul. This is not the end. This is merely a transition. Now, transitions are painful, they're awkward, they're loud, they're messy. This is no exception. But we will get through this. And whether this excites you or makes you drop into despair, now is the time to act. Because this hasn't set yet. We still have at least a couple more years. And especially if you consider yourself a business voter or a fiscal voter or a national security voter, and you want to still be a Republican, now is the time to take your party back. Because believe it or not, the folks in that circle, not all of them want to grab a canister of bear spray and a Confederate flag and march on the Capitol and kill a cop. There's an uproar in that community right now about what has happened. And they could really use the math and maps crowd again. Okay, so that's where we are. Let's talk about where we've been. At the end.
Kimmel, don't ask that question. It doesn't matter. Evaluate the data as he presents it. Stop trying to judge the speaker. Don't pay any attention to that. Is what he is saying even slightly accurate? Keep in mind, he's a geopolitical analyst with credentials the likes of which I could only dream of having. And he has a track record of scarily accurate predictions. So keep that in mind when evaluating that data.
End of World War II, the United States was really the last man standing. So we drew our allies together and pitched an idea for a new age. We will guard all civilian trade everywhere in the world. And in exchange, we get to write your security policies. We bribed up an alliance to fight the Cold War, and it worked. But the Cold War ended 30 years ago. And the question now is, what's next? Well, if you want to maintain a global order, if you want to maintain a global system, global peace, you have to do one of three things. Well, actually, you do three of three things. Number one, you have to have a political culture that agrees that a global system is a good idea. I would argue that that was already on the rocks well before Donald Trump ever entered the White House. And with the events of January 6th, I would argue that our political culture needs time to heal, and that will take time. I mean, let's assume for just a second that Joe Biden is the guy, and he will be able to magically bring us all together and into a new age of American leadership. How long do you think that's going to take? Like an hour? 6 months? 2 years? More time than he has? This is what, year and a half? It's going to take time. In the meantime, no one's managing the global system. Okay, so if we don't have the political culture, what else? Number two, global interests. Well, we've never had that. As a percentage of GDP, the United States remains the least involved economy in the world. For us, globalization was a means to a security end. We pay you to stand with us against the Soviets. We never invested our economy in it because then it wouldn't have been a bribe. It would have been extortion. So 1 and 2, both gone. What's the third one? You want to maintain a global system, you need a global military footprint, and that's gone. This is total US troop deployments around the world year by year. We now have fewer troops stationed around the world than at any time since the 1920s. Folks, it's over. And if you're betting on globalized exchange for anything in your life, you should be prepared to write it off. That's the geopolitical side. Now let's talk numbers. Now this is a standard demographic profile. Children at the bottom, young adults, mature.
Those of you that watched his previous presentation will be familiar with probably where this portion of the speech is heading. The demography has not changed. There has been no revolution within the demography statistics globally. It looks exactly the same way it did in the presentation that we watched from last year. By the way, it's the same from 2014 when he gave a lecture similar to this portion of it on demography as well, and his predictions were creepily accurate then for the modifications that have been made through the next 7 years. The guy knows his business. I mean, like I said, we disagree on where to go, but as Viva put it, this guy knows exactly who he is, where he wants to be, and how to get there. This is what the ruling class looks like, folks. Viva la demo revolution. No Coomer boom yet. It's just developed closer to his prediction. Exactly, Duffy. It's getting accurate, and he's not the only person who studies demography that I've heard this from. Like I said, I've come into contact with this stuff before, and the demography portion of it that he speaks about is backed up by other respected demographers who say the same thing. That's why when I came across it in that other video, I was like, oh shit, like what he's saying actually may be accurate. And it was.
Adults, retirees at the top, men on one side, women on the other. This is Mexico. This is what we call a consumption-led demographic. Because whenever the bulge in your structure is below roughly age 40, it's all about kids and cars and college and homes and spending. It's what drives modern systems. And when American business leaders and American political leaders look at a demographic like Mexico, we like what we see. 2 big reasons. First, they're young. Mexico consumes more than it can produce. They buy a lot of American imports. Second, there's little competition. The things that that people who are
Not an
40 and under
infographic.
are good at are not the same things that Americans tend to be good at. So Mexico excels at low and mid-range manufacturing and assembly. That's not what we do. We do the high end, we do the design. So the propensity for trade between Mexico and the United States is huge, and it's growing. And they became our #1 trading partner in 2019, and that is a position they will not give up in our lives. This is a partner, and this is not. The Koreans had a baby bust 50.
Sidewalk, what's your fucking deal? Those are that's census data from Mexico. Like, how is that disinformation? Like, that's literally the population pyramid graph from the nation state of Mexico. Like, how, in what way is that disinformation?
Years ago that they have never recovered from, and now it's too late. This is a terminal demography. But for the moment, they can make it work. Because when you have a lot of people in your 50s and early 60s, folks that have been on the job for 30, 40 years.
Yeah,
they're
Sam,
very high
you might want to
value
go
added,
study.
hugely productive. But they're going head to head with the American worker. And there aren't enough Koreans in their 20s and 30s to purchase everything that is produced, so they have to export it. In a globalized system, this can work if the US lets it. Now, from roughly 1980 to roughly 2015, the world was in kind of this perfect balance. Most of the world.
Technically, Sam, that's tomorrow. Tomorrow? It is tonight, though. By all accounts, yes.
World was either consumption-led, like Mexico today, or export-led, like Korea today. And the trade was flying fast and furious because the Americans made sure it could. We patrolled the sea lanes for everyone. We left our markets open. That was the deal of Bretton Woods at the end of World War II. But as I'm sure we all know, this is data from 2000? Yes, 2000. As I'm sure we all know, 20 years
Later, Sam. Good luck. Hope it goes well for you, Sam.
later, we are all 20 years older, and the math no longer works. We've passed the peak. Most of the advanced economies are past the point of any hope of demographic recovery. They've aged too much. They can't have kids anymore. And developing countries are aging faster than the developed ones did. The Brazilians, for example, are aging at 6 times the rate of aging here in the United States. Now, here, our demography isn't great, but it's certainly not awful. Because our baby boomers did something that none of their cohorts around the world did. They had kids. No, the millennials, for all their many, oh so many faults, have something that their cohorts around the world don't have. They freaking exist. And their consumption today is driving the American system, and their investment later will drive the American system. It's not perfect, but it is by far the best in the world. Let me give you an idea of scale. What I've done here is I've stacked up the world's top 50 consumption-led economies by GDP. US is the big blue bar. Here's where that stack is going to be 10 years from now. Now, this assumes zero growth, which I realize is not fair. I'm just trying to give
Apparently, you don't understand the economic ramifications of demography within a consumption-based economy. That's what I'm gathering from your comments there, Sidewalk.
Here are the world's export.
This probably isn't going to be the stream for you.
China today
I'll just tell you right now.
is the world's fastest aging society. Apparently, the one-child policy worked a little too well. And so they have already aged past any hope of being a consumption-led system. They are enjoying a moment in time right now when they're an export-led system. And that was going to end this decade anyway. And then here are what I call post-growth systems. Countries that have already aged past the point of no return, already have more retirees, not just than children, but than working adults. And here's what it's going to look like in 10 years. The economic structure that we have lived in our entire adult lives is already Gone. We will never recover to where we were at the beginning of 2020. It is mathematically impossible. It's not Trump. It's not trade. It's people. Let's talk COVID. What we've got here is new infections, 7-day moving average in per capita terms. So the numbers are broadly cross-comparable. The United States is that blue line near the top. United Kingdom is the pink.
Amorous. The demography stuff, though, takes 25 years to change. I'm not kidding. Like, it takes 25 years to change that. And so the ones who would change it are just being born in China today. So you stack the 25 on top of the 18 to 25 that's going to take to get them to maturity. And then they may have a shot at changing the demography statistics, the birth rates, if Chinese culture, if Italian culture, if Grecian culture changes along with it, right? If Germany's a big fucking one for this. If they manage to change their culture and the cultural norms for the birth rates, then it would take 40 years to change. It's a huge fucking deal. And this isn't something you can change tomorrow. There's just no fucking way. If the generation in charge right now, right, went just, I think he'll say it here in a bit, like if they go out into the lobby and start like fixing it right now, right? Like get to fucking now. Now you're looking at 25 years. This ship does not turn on a dime. And then those consumers need to change, right? Like this is the way the world, the global economy operates as it stands right now, has a series of factors that rely upon demography and consumption. These are two fundamental linchpins to how this shit is operating on a global scale. And it's about to look a lot different than how it has for the last 50 years. Yeah. Hey, Miles.
One.
Good luck with that.
Are the world's 6 largest consumption-led systems. So the US, the UK, France, advanced economies, all facing degrees of lockdown.
Oh, he does in other lectures, Duffy. Hey, Carpe.
The 3 developing countries, Brazil, Mexico, and India, similar systems, similar problems. And the reason I kept India on here, despite the fact that it looks like it rubs out coronavirus, is it hasn't. They just stopped testing. And so their numbers look great, but their hospitals are a freaking disaster. Before you get too cocky, you've done that in Iowa. Yes, your cases are down by 2/3 in the last 2 months. So is your testing.
Info. I happen to know this just because Swede has talked about this at length. That's because we don't want that stuff made here. That's actually the reason we don't want it made here. The U.S. has aged as an economy. We have aged out of manufacturing basically everything short of like nanometer technologies. Right, if you've got like the Taiwan Silicon Manufacturing Company or something like that, the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, like at TSMC, they are reshoring here, right? Like that's the sort of manufacturing we will take to resecure our supply lines. But the fact of the matter is that that cheap labor, that cheap manufacturing, that's going to be Mexico in the coming economic generation. It's not going to be China. It's not going to be Vietnam. It's not going to be Bangladesh. It's not going to be Indonesia. It's going to be Mexico. They have a glut of a labor force, and he's going to get into why they have even cheaper manufacturing. All right, and it's not going to be a reason that any of you are happy about. It's going to anger your little leftist brains, I promise you. But it's a very real economic factor. And so a lot of that like cheap manufacturing is going to go to Mexico, and it already has started. It's already started. It is a massive project down in Mexico right now. But yes, most of that manufacturing we don't want here. It fucks with our economy. So we got rid of it.
So we don't know.
Yeah, Walata.
And the number there for the United States represents some version of that trend nationwide. Point being, data for the advanced economies is undoubtedly understated by at least a factor of 3. For the developing world, probably at least a factor of 10. But the takeaway here is much more simple. Anytime you are in a prolonged health lockdown, consumption suffers. And anytime you're in a prolonged trade conflict, manufacturing production resources. That's been going on now for a year. So the consumption-led economies of the world are offline, which means that the export-led economies have no one to sell to. And 2022 was kind of the magic year when most countries flip. That's only a year away, which means it's already over. The world will never go back to consumption levels that we saw at the beginning of last year, not in our lives. There is good news. I would like to introduce you to William Shakespeare. No joke, that's actually his name. He was the second person in the United Kingdom to get the Pfizer vaccine. Now, the Pfizer vaccine has some downsides. It has to be stored at -70, which requires dry ice, and it takes 2 shots.
Curio and Curios people, what's up? We're just having a little bit of a challenging session of video watching for leftists. How did your guys' thing go? Let me just hang on. Let me change a couple of things here so I can see some stuff behind the scenes. There we go. How did your stream go? How did you guys? Oh, Jesus Christ! You're still rocking that copy pasta. You gotta rotate your copy pastas, man. Gotta keep them fresh. Either way. How'd y'all do? Did you have fun? So yeah, we're learning from a geopolitical strategist and analyst who has an eerie capability of predictive models. He's called a bunch of shots that have hit. And so we're watching his latest lecture he gave to a bunch of land investment douchebags. But he has a lot of insight that I think would help people on the left a lot if they can just absorb it. Oh, please. I even have a copy pasta command, AD. I'm not jealous. The fuck is a peepaw, says Caboose. Yeah, exactly, Australia. All right. If it has tamed down slightly, then what we will do.
That's roughly a month apart. Vaccine. Now, the Pfizer vaccine has some downsides. It has to be stored at -70, which requires dry ice, and it takes 2 shots roughly a month apart. But a week after Pfizer came out, we got the Moderna vaccine. It still needs 2 shots, but it can be stored in a commercial-grade freezer. So we already have more doses of the Moderna vaccine in circulation and distribution than we had of the Pfizer one. That's great. Just around the corner, we've got the AstraZeneca, or also known as the Oxford vaccine. Also 2 shots, but it can be stored in a refrigerator. And in the United Kingdom, they already have more doses of that out than the other 2 put together. We'll probably go through the certification process in this country for the Oxford vaccine by the end of the month, certainly by the end of February, and then we'll have 3. But the one I'm holding out for is the Johnson & Johnson, because it only takes 1 shot and it can be stored in a fridge. This is the one that most of us are probably going to get. It should, inshallah, come out in February, and we can start inoculations with it in March. What this means is we are looking at everyone in the United States who wants to get vaccinated, being able to get vaccinated probably by June 1st, which means we can use the summer to regenerate the economy And by the time we get to September, we can be going again on all cylinders. There is an end in sight. It just isn't soon enough to save the trade system. If you're in the United States, that's fine. If you're in the rest of the world, 2021 has gotten up to a bang-up start. I'm already trying to return to sender. And it's not done, it's just getting going. 2021 from a geopolitical point of view is most likely to be far worse than 2020, if you can imagine that. There's three things for this crowd I kind of want to underline. First of all, the best bit of good news you will have all year, the top right, we are going to have a trade deal with the United Kingdom. Now that the UK is no longer in the European Union, they are no longer benefiting from things like the Common Agricultural Policy. That means almost their entire agricultural sector is going to go under. I don't know if you guys knew this, but British food sucks. And as terms of whatever the trade deal is with the United States, US farmers are going to get access. In addition, as terms of that deal, they're probably going to lose preferential access from Europe. So you're talking about 2/3 potentially of the United Kingdom's food intake is going to have to be resourced. That can't help but benefit American agriculture. Second, the woman in the bottom right, that's Katherine Tai. She's going to be the new US trade representative. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the existing one, Robert Lighthizer. He's kind of a hard-ass, bare-knuckled negotiator, very disturbingly good at his job. This isn't her. She doesn't have the gravitas, she doesn't have the experience. She's a current congressional staffer. She's never been in charge of a large team, she's never led a negotiation. That should tell you everything you need to know about the Biden administration's trade policies. There are no new negotiations. There'll be one with the UK, they'll do some stuff on the edges, I think, with the Chinese, and that's it. No new deals. But the deals we have, Korea, Japan, Canada, Mexico, and soon the United Kingdom, that's half the American trade portfolio. It's not a priority. What she is a trade lawyer. They will sue the pants off of everybody. So if you're representing Farm Credit or any sort of agricultural conglomerate or organization of farmers or ranchers, get to know her very well. She is eager to sue everyone. Just make sure you get on her good side before you need her help. Third is China. One of the last actions the Trump administration is taking on its way out the door is to normalize relations with Taiwan as much as possible. Katherine Tai is Taiwanese. And the Biden administration has already made it very clear that the tariffs are going nowhere. In fact, they'll probably go up. In fact, they're going to work with every government they can in the world to try to bring more and more pressure to the Chinese. Now, whether or not you think this is going to work or not is not the point. The point is that the Chinese are going to flip their shit.
Yep.
They're going to be very upset at the Biden administration for every reason imaginable. And to think that this relationship is going to get better it's going to get much worse before it gets better, assuming it gets better. And the Chinese have made it very clear, politically and in their purchases, that for the foreseeable future, they will only purchase American products, no matter what they are, when they have run out of sources from everywhere else. It happened this year with soy and with pork and with corn. And yes, right now purchases are high, but that's because they drained the entire world of everything else first. It's a political decision. They are preparing for an internal lockdown. And this is one way they can insulate themselves at least a little bit. So for ag sales for the next year or two, I wouldn't get too comfortable. One final.
Here's the truth, Estrella. If no, they're not even close. They're not even fucking close. This is the truth of the matter. We have a fundamental misunderstanding of our position on the geopolitical, on the global scale as Americans. A lot of other countries get this, but we don't. For some reason, in a previous lecture, he actually showed statistics from Americans dating back a bunch of decades as to what our feeling is to whether America is on the decline or not. We always feel reliably, Americans always feel America is on the decline, even though for 14 decades, we have come out of the decade with a stronger military and a stronger economy than what we entered the decade with. All right. The closest competitor to this, I believe, is 6 decades, and it's China, and they've had 2,000 years to do it in. All right. This is the truth of the matter. Is America is astoundingly well positioned. We've got a few critical things that we need to deal with. We've got a bunch of shit, but from the position of like a neoliberal hyper capitalist, America is astoundingly well positioned right now. It's just the truth of the matter. The American empire isn't actually on the decline. What is happening is we're withdrawing from the globalization effort. And as such, we've got ours. We're energy independent. We've got our trading partners who account for 50% of our trading relationships. We've secured ourselves with Canada and Mexico. Mexico is going to be our cheap manufacturing and labor source for probably 15 years to come. The shale gas sources, the shale sweet crude sources will hold out for several decades at least. And so, I mean, those could go 150 years, but the most conservative estimate is 30 years. We have more petroleum and oil engineers than the rest of the world combined. So even if Russia starts tapping those natural gas resources as the permafrost thaws, they'll have to contend with swamplands and freshwater issues as well. But also, they don't have the skill base to take advantage of it. They're going to have to hire us to build a whole bunch of their infrastructure, or at least design it for them. Right? We are astoundingly well positioned right now if you're a neoliberal capitalist. And that's what you have to understand. These fuckers are in charge. All right. Like, we need to understand their positions. We need to understand how they think. We need to understand what moves they are making. And also, we need to know what to not be afraid of. Right. A lot of us are expecting the American hegemony to collapse. And what's actually happening is demography, population statistics on a global scale are collapsing. The energy sector is fracturing. The finance sector is having a turn down on a global scale while it's in an upswing on the U.S. side, right? We're positioned exceedingly well right now. And we can protect our shit. We're the only one that can. Nobody else even comes close. Nobody's going to fuck with us militarily. And all of the positions that matter, you know, the Gulf of Oman, the Horn of Africa, all these like huge energy trade sectors, dude, one sortie from an American supercarrier, and that shit gets shut down for years. I'm not kidding. This is not some like weird, this isn't speculation. This is well known within many sectors. Like, we could cripple global energy shipments with a handful of planes. We could do it instantaneously. You've got China and Russia continually contending with competing forces within the region. See Iran for this sort of thing. Iran, we may actually sweeten up to within the next decade or so, because Iran's going to be a linchpin for a whole bunch of these things. And you may actually see relations turn with Iran as a result of some of this. This is super valuable information. And this is the kind of stuff that leftists ignore because capitalism bad. Yes, capitalism's bad, but you know what? In the US, it's winning. It's still winning. It's fucking the people, yes, sure, But the fact of the matter is on a nation state level, it's kicking ass still. And we have to come to terms with that. We have to sell. We have to pitch to people understanding that. Let's see. Oh, let's go. Let's say economics are boring, but they determine basically your entire world. Oh yeah, China's fucked. Like wavy. China is absolutely fucked. Yeah, you go watch the Polymatter series on China and go read up on demography, and then go back to China and look at it. China shot themselves in the face. They're not in a very good position. They aren't.
Since you're not all in agriculture, I just want to talk about what Americans.
Oh, Zippy, it's one of my bots. Don't worry about it.
What we've got here is not a population density map. One, I wouldn't get too comfortable. Sales, at least a little bit. So for ag sales for the next year or two, I wouldn't get too comfortable. One final thing, since you're not all in agriculture, I just want to talk about what Americans themselves are doing. What we've got here is not a population density map, it's an urban planning map. And the cities are color-coded by the number of directions that they can expand physically. Cities that are in blue or in green can expand in almost every direction. Those that are in red or in orange are starkly limited. In fact, those in red can't expand physically at all. So if they want to add more people, they have to go up, and going up is expensive. Right now, the United States is going through its greatest internal
Fever Reaver, I don't think I've encountered you before, but thank you for the follow. Thank you for the raid. You can see how much on autopilot that one was. Amherst, they could. Here's the thing, and Sweet agreed with this prediction. China doesn't use the Belt and Roads Initiative as aggressively as the U.S. has used its Tales of an Economic Hitman, economic hitman styles methodologies in the past. China is more carrot than stick, and they're not willing to take the hit to actually get in there and really knock some skulls, or at least at present they aren't. So yeah, chances are they won't actually do that. Things could change. They always can, but for sure. Amherst, they kind of do need it. And how was your stream, Fever? What did you get up to? And if you're not already following Fever, the link should have, it auto popped in as soon as you rated in. What did y'all get up to on your stream? At present, we're going through a lecture given to a speech given to a land investment consortium convention that was given by a geopolitical strategist who leftists don't often agree with, but I think he has a ton of valuable information, insight, and knowledge that we could benefit from. And so we're watching him. I got really up to smoking weed for 5 hours straight, so I'm baked like a potato. All right. Yeti Cine recommended this one. Have you've been following since November of last year, Yeti? Though I haven't seen you recently. Yeah, I haven't seen you since November, but yeah. All right, cool. Thank you kindly. Thank you for the recommendation. All right, fair enough. I'm glad y'all had a productive conversation, and thank you for the follows: Fever Reaver, Pie King 83, Sephram, Kefrim. I don't know. Feel free to correct my pronunciations. And Cyomorphous. Thank you for those follows. Thank you kindly. And Mr. Jackpots. There we go. Let's get the follows out of the way. Thank you, Mr. Jackpots, as well. Yes, we're not doing very much anarchist theory or education tonight. Tonight we're combating the echo chamber effect. And I'm sort of forcing leftists to be exposed to things such as, a geopolitical strategist and analyst who is firmly on the team of capitalists and sort of like neoliberal hyper-capitalism, though he seems to have libertarian leanings as well. So yeah. Fever, not enemies. Activist Dao De Ching by William Martin. It's no use to see them as enemies. It's counterproductive for the actual progress. But either way, we don't need any of Kai's philosophizing tonight. So yeah, if you're new to the community and you want to jump into the Discord, we have a fairly active Discord. We do like weekend stuff. We do bad movie nights on Friday nights after the stream. There's the anarcho meatheads that get together on like Saturdays and watch like Punchy Boy, Punchy Girl, and like physicality stuff. Sometimes other sports as well. We've got a whole bunch of stuff. That we do. And if you hang around long enough, there's some other stuff that you don't necessarily see upon first glance, shall we say. So yeah, anyway, back to Peter Zahan. And again, thank you for the raid, Fever. So let me just look at this map. Who's actually good? So Vegas is good. Salt Lake's solid. Sacramento's good. San Francisco's fucked. San Jose's fucked. San Diego's fucked. New Orleans is fucked. It's nothing for Burlington and Vermont. So most of the major metropolitan cities actually have amazing potential for expansion.
Since the GIs came home from the war, 3 things are driving this. First, the baby boomers, the largest generation we've ever had, are nearing retirement. They don't want to shovel snow. Sorry, Iowa. And so they're moving into warmer climates. Second, the millennials are discovering that after they've had their great urban experience, that they can't afford to raise their children in a midtown apartment. So they are moving to someplace that they can have a yard. And third, because of coronavirus, no one wants to live where they are dependent on mass transit. All the cities that have good mass transit are the ones with circles around them. So people are moving south and people are moving west to get to places that have lower costs of living, lower costs of expansion, and where car culture.
Kimmel, I can I can tell you've been following since February 24th of this year.
Makes more sense. If you're in one of those green or blue cities in the south or the west, expect land prices to go up because people are going to need the space. Okay, I deliberately left a lot of time for questions because I'm sure I kicked over all the hornet's nests. And so, yes.
Mitre, this isn't about you. This is about America. This literally isn't about you. Sorry.
We're going to open it up. We also, for those of you who are online, you have a chat function that you can send your questions in. Please keep the invectives to a minimum or just send them directly to my comment site on my website. That'd be great. Sometimes they make for great drinking games. Okay, we also have a couple of microphones right up here. Now, don't be shy. I realize there's a lot of Iowans here. Channel your inner Chicagoan, and feel free to rake me over the coals. It's totally fine. Please.
We've seen a lot of, you're saying we're still in transition worldwide. So we've got obviously our DC stuff going on. What are the other major G20 countries that we should be looking at, that kind of volatility? There's the French, us, and...
You're talking political churn?
Yeah, dramatic political churn.
Oh, well, I mean...
Dramatic, but not just slight, but like...
Sure.
Like you talk about the implode of the French and all these other...
Yeah, the French don't have a
dualities.
functional opposition or a functional ruling party right now. It's really just Macron and a bunch of sycophants in the parliament. I don't mean that as a bad thing. Honestly, when the French really do get their stuff together, they're kind of scary. So I'm fine with this. But it does mean that France's ability to function internationally are kind of limited. I like to say that we Americans learned all of our bad habits from our parents. So the British system, oh my God, what a disaster. If you can imagine Bernie Sanders as a Nazi, that was the former leader of the Labour Party in Britain, and it'll take them a decade to recover from that. So they don't have a functional oppositional party. Boris Johnson has some things about him that I find really interesting and positive, but to get to be premier, he basically wrecked his party, not as badly as Donald Trump did to the Republicans, but kind of in the same vein. So we're going to have very unstable governments in the UK for the foreseeable future, figure at least the next 5 years.
Corbyn.
Especially once the terms of a trade deal with the United States come out. That's going to piss
Corbyn.
off a lot of people, but they have no option.
What about Angela?
Angela Merkel, God, she's been trying to retire for 6 years. Every time she does, she picks somebody to follow her up, and then they kind of look under the hood and realize all the problems that are coming to Germany, and they quit. So she's now on her 4th potential replacement. The guy who's most likely to take the job if it were to happen right now, and who knows whether it will, is a guy by the names of Spahn. He's a gay ultranationalist, which is kind of a weird combo, even for Germany. I'm not saying he's going to get the job, but he's in the lead right now. But the point is, the Social Democrats in Germany have collapsed, and the Christian Democrats are so discombobulated that Angela is really the only one. So there's no clear movement there. We haven't had the political crisis yet because Angela hasn't left. But as soon as she does, wow. Japan.
Viva. I've spoken to Joe at length enough about your political scene to at least have a grasp and a handle on it. There's a reason that you're hoping that so deeply, and you know it. Yeah, exactly. But what he's saying is accurate, dude. You guys are fucked when she finally steps down. It seems to be she's the only thing holding it together at the moment.
And we've gone back to revolving prime ministers. Canada has a guy who has a great soccer game as prime minister, but honestly, it's probably only a matter of time before his vice premier knifes him in his sleep. Have I left out anybody important? I mean, Italy's Italy.
Vladimir or Medvedev?
Oh, sorry, I thought we were talking about the real countries. Okay, yeah, Vladimir, he's kind of like Angela. He's tried to train up some replacements every time, and then they start acting all Russian on him, and then they vanish. So he's another one of those that'll be there until the end of his days. And, as we saw with Yeltsin, probably another decade after that.
Perfect.
The Russians keep inviting me to visit, and I keep saying no. Please.
Appreciate your comments you said earlier about having, with all the political turmoil in the Capitol this last couple of days and where America's at, they take time to bring healing to that. Just would be really curious about your thoughts related to what's taken place in the last several days related to the Parler application, basically, where Google and Apple and
Somebody asked him
privately
about
business
Parler.
outright
Holy shit.
company
Sure.
came in and basically said, we don't want to hear
Then
that.
go somewhere else.
We're just going to cut it off.
I'm not turning him off, and he has a whole bunch of geopolitical and analytical knowledge on immigration, economics, demography that is super valuable. So if you can't tolerate it, nobody's holding your feet here. Unelectable Airwaves, thank you for the raid. Hosting me with 10, rating in with 5. That's pretty much how it works for statistics on raiders, doesn't it? What did you get up to tonight, Unelectable Airwaves? How are you doing here? Let me toggle over while we're taking a second here. So, what did you get up to tonight? How did your stream go? Are you doing well? Oh, it's the ANCAP in human capital stock that triggered it. Estrella, just a straight grab. So, I mean, ANCAP confirmed. MRS, yes, we did. Because they create new words out of it, like Ancapistan and shit like that. Yeah. And capital and shit like that. Yeah. So, yeah, there is no space check in the regex for it. Good call though, Amorous. All right. Yeah, Viva, that's I don't have hopes for a lot of leftists that, like, if you can't sit down and like watch somebody like this, there's nobody, like, you're not getting any allies. Forget about making alliances. You're screwed. Yeah. Because this guy's milquetoast. Like, this guy's the definition of, like, benign. Yeah, I mean, yeah. He's a geopolitical analyst and does fairly well for himself doing that. So, yeah. Anyway, let's see how we fucking end Western hegemony. That's fucking hilarious given the context of the conversation we've had tonight. Let's hear how he responds to this idiotic question. Honestly, I think this is a waste of his time to even respond to a question like this, given his credentials. But somebody has asked him about the fucking Parler app being shut down. You know, this is a man that analyzes economic trends on a global scale over decades. Hey, what do you think of Parler being shut down? Jesus fucking Christ. But hey.
I'd like to hear your comment. That whole issue, how it relates to some of the things you said.
I did ask for awkward questions. Let's start by laying out what has happened and what has happened while you guys have been here today. Since noon, MasterCard and American Express said that they're not going to process payments for anyone who supported election decertification. So if you want to give money, for example, to Ted Cruz, and this sticks, you're going to have to send him cash because Citibank has said the same thing. We have a broad repudiation by the business community of everything that happened on January 6th. And that's one of the reasons I'm thinking that the business community really is going to jump ship. They're furious. They're scared. Hard to argue. Now,
It's true,
a
Viva.
lot of people are concerned that big tech is liberal. True. They're also concerned that this is broad coordination, almost a conspiracy of big tech to push conservative voices out. Not true. tens of thousands of companies and business associations repudiated Trump on the 6th and asked for Vice President Pence to remove him from power using Article 25. This is not a small sliver. This is almost everybody. Will the rage last? We'll see. But Biden would be a fool if he didn't try to take advantage of this. Now, the official reason that big tech is giving for all this deplatforming is that they saw violence ahead of time, they told the FBI what they knew, but the violence happened anyway. And then they looked at their platforms again and they saw more violence coming with specific plots in all 50 states, specifically to target the inauguration everywhere. That's why they shut it down. Amazon Web Services, when they shut it down, within minutes, schematics were circulating on Parler about how to attack Amazon server farms. So I find this justified. What I don't like is who's making the decision. The way US law exists currently, something called Section 230 in the Telecoms Decency Act of 1996 says that anything that is discussed, anything that is posted and shared on any social media or any internet platform whatsoever, that the people operating the platform suffer no criminal liability, no matter what it is. So for example, video of the Capitol Police officer was murdered. The entire process of the murder was documented and then uploaded. That's not illegal. And certainly they're not criminally culpable for hosting it, but that doesn't mean that the companies wanted to. And that's why they're acting. Now, the only institution that can change what is allowed is Congress. And Congress, you may have noticed, for the last decade has been rather feckless. So until such time as Congress actually does congressional things, it is entirely up to the companies of the United States to decide what is permissible in the public sphere and what is not. I am not comfortable with that. But until Congress acts, it is really the only option. So to underline, political violence is bad in any form in any advanced country. We should stomp that out wherever we can. I think Silicon Valley in the short term did the right thing. But in the long term, it is up to us and Congress to figure out what we will allow. I don't think anyone here thinks that celebrating the killing of a cop is something we want on that list. Fight.
Will the day come when we will have to prove we have had the COVID vaccine to travel either domestically or abroad?
Yes, but it's not going to take too long. We should have mass vaccinations finished in this country before the summer. We should also know by the summer how long the vaccination will last. But yes, and I don't think it's just going to be about travel. You already need to prove that you're clear before you can travel internationally to almost anywhere. So it's not really a shock. But most employers are going to require proof of vaccination. The alternative is to basically live in our houses forever, and I really don't want to do that. This is the first, I usually spend 250, 275 days a year traveling for work. This is my first in-person event since March. I'm ready for this to be over, and sign me up. These vaccines are the most field-tested medical product in human history. Each one of them individually, and we already have 4. So I'm really not worried about side effects. There has not been a death from anywhere in the test. We actually had more deaths in the placebo group, which I find hilarious. Does that mean there are not going to be side effects? No, of course there's going to be side effects. It's kind of halfway between a flu shot and a tetanus shot from what we know so far. I can live with that. Please.
Got a few questions from the people online.
Great.
First one, what are you projecting for major regional wars in the world over the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, there's a cheery topic. Without the United States, we are going to get countries that are going to raid shipping for this reason or the other reason. So for example, last week, Iran hijacked a South Korean oil tanker. US did nothing because we don't care anymore. And as that happens-
It's maxed out, Viva. It's maxed.
we should expect to see a maritime conflict up and down the Persian Gulf.
No, yeah, if you're just encountering EWH here, yeah, don't think that they're being sarcastic or joking. They're serious about most of the shit fuckery that they're talking about.
To Northeast Asia supply run because it's so vulnerable. I expect the most shooting to happen in the Persian Gulf between the Iranians and the Saudis, and then in the Western Pacific between the Japanese and the Chinese and whoever they can line up to be allies, which means most of them are going to be on the Japanese side. I'm also concerned about the Russians doing one last ditch, last gasp expansion before their demographics collapse, and that puts them head to head with the Germans. So I mean, it's kind of like the more history changes, the more it stays the same to a certain degree. I don't expect any of this to bleed over into the Western Hemisphere. There really aren't any territorial disputes, and the local powers in the Western Hemisphere trade with each other in a more constructive and less predatory way, primarily the United States, Mexico, and Canada. So I'm not worried here, I'm worried there.
Next question. Peter, what are you most optimistic about and what is your most fearful to you?
Let's start with optimistic. I think the two sectors that are going to do best in the United States over the next 30 years are petrochemicals and agriculture. Petrochemicals because we have an energy supply that is heavy on the inputs for the petrochemical sector, particularly high quality crude oil and natural gas. And so we have the lowest cost structure anywhere in the world with no security problems. Agriculture, because we've got the land, we've got the cheap inputs because of petrochemicals. It actually rains in the United States, which is a nice touch compared to some agricultural zones. And if you look around the world, the other bread baskets that are out there, most of them can't compete, can't maintain output in a world where transport becomes constrained in some way. About 80% of the calories that are produced in the world are produced with imported inputs. So any interruption to transport hits them on the production side and on the export side, and that's just not viable. So I don't see countries like Brazil or Russia being significant agricultural exporters over the long haul in a world where security breaks down. But for you guys, no problem at all. Now, that story is different based on what the product is. I'm far more bullish on things like soy than, say, pork, but that's kind of the general story. As for what I'm concerned about, in a world where the United States is not watching the world, secondary powers will rise. And 10, 15, 20 years from now, we are going to go back into the world without allies. And a lot of the things that we could lean upon others to help us with during the Cold War, we will have to do for ourselves. And that I lay squarely at the feet of not just Donald Trump, but Barack Obama and George W. Bush and Bill Clinton. We have let all of our allies degrade. We've gone from having over 100 firm allies in the world to 3. That was a mistake. And we will pay for that in due time. But not soon. Probably should have ended on the positive. All right, you guys have been great. Everybody take care, stay safe.
Sidewalk says about the man who accurately predicted some the fracturing of the energy market, and he predicted 10 years ago that when the U.S. would become energy independent. He accurately predicted what would become the downfall of Venezuela's oil market as well. Yeah, he's just some schmuck, and you're a fucking master genius strategist. Come on, dude. You don't agree with him, but the guy's credentials alone. Fuck me. I encourage people to read his books too. Hear what he has to say. Hey, thank you for the follow, Antares, and thank you for the follow, Lee Spanner. Amorous, I mean, wouldn't that be realistic at this point? Like, I mean, wouldn't be being a bit doomer be just realistic? Viva, yeah, that is true. His name is Peter Zahan. Zahan.com. You can go check out some of his maps, some of his analytics work, see who the fuck he works for. He's not on our team. He's not a leftist. He's a jaded, sold out Gen Xer. That is who he is. He knows who he is, and he seems to be comfortable in his position. He knows who he is. He knows what he wants. He knows how to get there. But he's got a decent track record as an analyst. So, yeah. Yeah. His favorite president. Well, no, his favorite president wasn't George H.W. Bush. The statement in totality was that as far as foreign policy interaction goes, George H.W. Bush was probably the best president in modern U.S. history. He was the right president at the right time with the right set of skills. That is what he said. Now, whether you agree or disagree, he comes at it from an analyst's point of view vis-a-vis like neoliberal capitalism. Right? Like, he's not looking at it from a leftist position. You'd look at it and be like, it was a fucking travesty, the Iran-Contras. And, you know, like, we would be, most leftists would be just reeing at that. Unelectable. He has spoken at the sustainability conference that Waste Management put on. And so he will speak to topics for an audience. He will tailor his speech. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, this time he was talking to people who invest in land, that specifically, and that's why, you know, here is why you need to not worry about all this other stuff that you would have worried about. That's the beginning of all of his speeches. And then he, you know, spoke to, here are your growth areas. Here are the areas that can grow, and here are the areas that would grow and why. So, yeah. Yeah, he speaks for who he speaks to. Exactly, Wither. He will tailor it depending on his audience. He knows his demos when he speaks to them. Oh, God, are we still doing fourth political? Oh, Jesus Christ. All right, well, whoever just donated the biddies, thank you for the biddies. Just Nosball. Was that in response to? So take someone to. You got that right there. I feel like that's what. Nosball. Just nationalist Bolshevik. That's just your response to just Nosball. All right, cool. That'll be a super productive conversation going on in chat. Oh, Jesus Christ. With all of that said, and understanding the context from the other videos, for those of you who have been here for watching some of his other videos and some of oh Jesus, we're doing this, and Western Hegemony, somebody has just redeemed 30,000 channel points to time you out for 10 minutes. I'll tell you right now the same thing I tell everybody. We tend to respect you a little more if you actually survive the timeout, but if you fuck off, I get it. Either way, your timeout is commencing. And Mr. Haggis, thank you for the follow. Yeah, but it's always impressive when somebody spends 30,000 channel points to just shush someone up for a moment. This is the second time they've gotten that timeout as a reward. Holy shit. All right, well, is what it is. Wow. All right, there's Jesus Christ, Mitra. All right, I'm gonna jump into on air for those. If anybody wants to join me, you are welcome to. We have been going. I mean, I did. Yeah, I took a 50-minute video and turned it into like an hour and 50 minutes, something like that. Hey, they're just fake internet points anyway, so I dream of a world where we pay 30,000 each stream to shut the same person up. It's marital. Yeah, if you want to jump on there, you know how to do it. No, they aren't, Haggis. They aren't. And you may actually be making a distinction that is also incorrect. Go ahead and try and give me a shot at the difference between anarchy and anarchism. Don't worry, I'm not going to pick on you. But give me, so I know what I'm working with. Just give me a shot at, like, just take a shot at what the difference may be. What is anarchy? What is anarchism? Amorous. One of these days when I start looking like I want to pound my head on the keyboard, that's your moment, Amorous. No. No. Anarchy really doesn't have anything to do with chaos. The definitional set that has been prescriptive versus descriptive, the descriptive definitional set of anarchy meaning chaos is actually finds its origin in state propaganda. I'm not kidding. This is a very real thing. You can find it all the way back to about 1890s, but it really hits its stride during the Wilson administration. So look for the anti-socialist, anti-communist, and anti-anarchist pamphlets that the Wilson administration used to release in the early teens of the 1900s. I think the anti-anarchism one was probably around 1912, something about there. But there's a long storied history of government propaganda trying to malign and misuse the term anarchy and align it with chaos. Historically, it doesn't mean that. And within a prescriptive space such as this, or like political science, any technical spaces, right? It does not mean that at all. Basically, anarchy is a sort of the non-theoretical, non-political science version of anarchism. Anarchy is more appropriately applied to the proto-anarchists. So you would be looking at indigenous tribes and these sorts of things. North American indigenous tribes especially utilized a multitude of anarchistic organizational methods and operation. This would be referred to as anarchy. Anarchism is the product of anarchists. Anarchism is the formalized political theory that is associated with with anarchy or anarchists, right? This is when you take this concept of this hierarchically organized, decentralized, or distributed topological organizational methods that are so common within anarchy, and then you give them formal theory. So the people that give them formal theory and live by and ascribe to certain principles contained within are generally referred to as anarchists, and this theory is overall referred to as anarchism. So the difference between anarchy and anarchism is actually formal theory and operation. There you go. Oh, and if you're wondering the origins of any of these terms, it all sort of finds its origin point in ancient Greek of anarchos, and meaning without, archos meaning ruler or leader. So there you go. I'm waiting. This is gonna be seconds. I can't wait to. This is gonna be hilarious. Let's just all watch Warhead 420 Man. Which, by the way, let me just check how long the account. Yeah, May 28th. So you've managed to have this account for all of. Let's see, what is that? We had a 31 on the last. Yeah, so 1, 2, 6 days. So not even 6 days. So this will be interesting. Hey, Warhead 420 Man, reply with Orange Man bad, and then we'll know you're real. Otherwise, you're going to be assumed to be just sort of an annoying bot, and we'll ban you outright as being such. But at least if you reply back with Orange Man bad, I'll know you're, a human being. Hey, Viva. Well, they failed to reply back with the prompt, so I'm just going to assume they're a bot. Kvass. I told you. I fucking told you. Oh, interesting, Viva. You're having connection issues. Well, that sucks. Well, get it sorted. So what's Warhead on about? Oh, he's on about the Jews again. They're just on about the Jews. It's always with like that kind of chud mentality. It's always about 3 questions or 3 statements away from the Jews. It's pretty common. Can we play with the bot? I mean, tell you what. If you can keep chat, you can keep the bot, you can keep your latest play toy. But if he strays into TOS, you know what we have to do.
Hello.
Hey, Viva, that worked.
Yeah. But now I cannot watch this stream.
Oh, you're having bandwidth issues.
Yeah, even Wi-Fi, but I'm at work. So.
Oh, and you're always low. I've already got you at 200%. But either way, thanks for stopping by. It really does amuse me to like show that kind of stuff in leftist spaces and just watch people's fucking brains melt. There's always a percentage. The last time we watched him, there was a percentage that just can't accept what he's saying because they disagree with him. I'm the creature that guards the gates to TOS hell. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens to him. We get the Jews guy at least once a week, says Airwaves. It's super common. It's super common. We get hit by bots probably once a month doing like the Goyim thing. And then, anytime you have a conversation with a lot of these people, it turns out to be the Jews. About 3 questions.
Only 5. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm used to it. I'm used to it. It's like, it's like, oh, what are you, a Zionist? No. I'm just capable of accepting a little bit of nuance within my worldview. And that not all Jews are Zionists, and not all citizens of Israel are necessarily settlers within the West Bank, and not all Gaza Strip inhabitants are angelic individuals who, the light of God shines out of their fucking ass, right? There's a lot of nuance to this conversation. Is apartheid bad? Yes. Apartheid bad. Is genocide bad? Yes. Genocide bad. But people who like to paint with a black and white paint set like that generally don't have a lot to contribute to the conversation. At least that's what I've found over the years. Wow, that's we need a fuck the Israeli government button. Yeah, all I have is China.
Fuck the Chinese government. There.
Let's see if we can find a Randy impersonator, fucking Fiverr, and go from there. Yeah, I typed Palestine and triggered it. I feel proud. People like that are simplistic by nature and don't have much depth. That is true, Spanner. Don't tell anyone the Jews are Jewish. China is asshole. Israel is genocide. Genocidal. Okay. All right. All right. But
I would say both are genocidal.
Yeah, but I mean, do you make a distinction between the Jewish people and the state of Israel, Warhead? Because it seems that you're not making a whole lot of that distinction. And that's an important distinction to make. But, yeah. What time is it in Germany right now?
11:30.
All right. Eastern hegemony will fuck up Western hegemony. That's hilarious. Hey, end Western hegemony. Tell you what, you and I have a date in 2030. All right, let's just say January 1st, 2030. We need to hook back up. And we need to have that conversation again. Has Eastern hegemony ended Western hegemony? Because I think that'll be a really interesting conversation to have in, say, 9-10 years. So we'll say January 1st, 2030, you and I can have this conversation again. But I think that'll be a really fun conversation.
You mean after China lost like 1/5 of the population?
Yeah. After China has lost 1/5 of their population, unsuccessfully managed to convert to a consumer economy, even though they need to desperately, have a water crisis or 12, and have completely ruined their international reputation. Yeah, I'm sure it'll be great. It'll be great. I mean, they're not even a military force. Like, if they're the standing private gun ownership population of the U.S. outnumbers the Chinese military. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, there's just nothing there, and they're an encapsulated nation. The fact that Japan and Korea, like Japan and South Korea and Indonesia and the Philippines, ring them, makes their expansionism extraordinarily difficult to do. And by the way, not to put up on an altar or provide accolades to bad behavior, shall we say, genocidal behavior, Japan has kicked China's shit in before. As small as Japan is as a nation, they've absolutely pushed China's shit in before. So I'm just saying, like, if they start, like, if that world erupts, that's part of the world erupts, it's not as an easy of a fight as you would think for China. So this whole, like, I don't know who's coming to the fucking rescue for that Eastern hegemony, who's going to set it up, because it ain't going to be fucking China. between economic collapse, demographic collapse, water table collapse, they're going to have a rough 10 years ahead of them. They really are. They're kind of fucked. And from what I understand, Germany's not going to be doing too well either. It looks like France actually has some interesting shifts that could put them into positions of power if they know how to use them correctly.
They're French. They will revolt against themselves.
Yeah, that tends to be the way, right? Like France is actually making headway. France is in charge of and France has shot itself in the foot. Tends to be the tradition there, right? But yeah, apparently their economic analysis is that they didn't tie their economy to the EU as much as everybody else did in the EU. And so if somebody needs to pull the ripcord really fast, France is in a really good position to do it, apparently.
I actually don't see the EU collapsing like that hard.
I'm not sure I don't know if it will or won't, but that's definitely, I mean, it's always on the table, right? Like it's a lot easier to get out of the EU than it is to get out of the US.
Well, how do you want to get out of the US?
Well, I'm saying as a state, right? Like, because functionally Germany and France are states within the EU. So it's easier for France to leave the EU than it is Arizona to leave the US.
Yeah, but we have like still the EU basically doesn't have so much leeway about over the countries themselves. Like it's not really comparable with the US or with Canada, like.
Oh, and just FYI, I saw some interesting statistics involving Alberta and their oil production and the failed pipeline, the Keystone Pipeline. It wouldn't have benefited us. It would have benefited Canada more than anybody else. One of the solutions, so Alberta is at present supporting, their tax base is supporting the majority of Canada. And they have a collapsed oil and gas industry. As a result, their prices are ridiculous as a result of them not being able to integrate into the U.S. pipeline system via the Keystone system. One of the solutions to a host of their tax problems, demographical problems, economic problems, as well as oil and gas production integration problems, is to legally secede from Canada, which Quebec made sure at a federal level was possible to do. Quebec laid the groundwork for this. Alberta could secede from Canada and legally join the U.S. They could petition the U.S. to become a state, and it would resolve their tax base issue. It would resolve their petrochemical issue, and it would resolve a bunch of their demographical issues. Not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying that is one of the weirdest moves that could be made on a global geopolitical scale, and it is entirely legal. And it's possible. There's a non-zero chance of it happening. Let's just put it that way. It's like 0.001% chance, but it's still a non-zero chance, which is always ridiculous in this world. Will Texas allow Northern Texas to join? And thank you for the host, Riot.
Happens, the rest joins too.
Oh, that would be hilarious. Dude, it would be if Mexico, the US, and Canada merged into one nation, the rest of the world's fucked. The rest of the world is fucked. That is a powerhouse. That is a powerhouse. If Canada, US, and Mexico became one integrated nation state on some level, that's a whole other world.
I think the rest of the world would need to work together to just prevent this from happening.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It would be a problem for a lot of people. And yeah, thank you for the host there, Riot. Thoughts on Sardinia becoming Switzerland's 27th canton? Is that on the table right now? Because that would be hilarious if Sardinia became a Swiss canton. Is that even an option? Because that would be that I would be laughing
I
my
never
ass
heard
off.
of that.
I would be laughing my ass off if Sardinia became a Swiss canton. Oh, that would. Oh,
Countries are weird.
So yeah, it's yeah, and there you go. Fucking sorry, Australia, I just saw it. Yeah, it's like a Swiss state. Switzerland has a very interesting political system. It's weirdly non-European in a lot of regards. Where everybody else sort of integrated, the Swiss were like, yeah, about that. We have other ideas. I heard that that's been dissolved a little bit more over the last few decades, though, and they've integrated a little further.
Yes, so the main thing that they have done is that if there's European money on a Swiss bank account, European states have now the right to, which is a big problem for people that want to avoid taxes.
Funny how that works. Can America, with Canada, America, and Mexico, there's no way we're giving naming rights to. It would become the United States of North America. That's the concession America would make. The U.S. would make a concession. Look, we're all on North America, so we'll call it the United States of North America now. There's no way we're letting Canada put their prefix out in front of our country name. If that were to happen, there's no fucking way that's happening that way. It's the United States of North America. Yeah. Oh yeah, that'll go really well. Europe and Asia is one continent called Eurasia. United States of Eurasia. Oh, that'll go really well.
Oh yeah, there's like no cultural problems, no language barriers, nothing like that.
And FYI, Kimmel, per Tale of Two Rabbits, who is indigenous and an anthropological scholar of indigenous cultures in North America, there's only a few tribes that actually called it Turtle Island. That isn't a pan-Indian name. That is actually a few tribe-specific title for the landmass. In fact, there's about as many names for North America as there were social groups or anthropologically designated groups of indigenous peoples in North America. The Lakota Sioux apparently have really done a number on them. They were sort of the U.S. of the indigenous tribes, and they did some expansionism, shall we say. We'll be kind. It wasn't imperialism because they didn't necessarily have an empire proper, but they did some expansionism and they pushed their ideas and wording structures out there a little more. Yeah, and so yeah, it's an issue. They adopted from a few others. Let's just put it that way. It's yeah. So naming rights for the land mass is up in the air for whoever wants to grab it. But yeah, given the demographical collapse happening on a global scale, consumerist capitalism looks to be only on the uptick in America. Everybody else is going to have to retool to some extent or another, or make economic treaties with everybody else. You're going to see, you're going to either see fracturing or mass integration. And given the fracturing of the energy market that's on the horizon by multiple analysts at this point, I would probably lean towards fracturing rather than integration, to be perfectly honest. The global integration concept experiment, it's a fairly modern phenomenon, and it looks like we may actually have sort of maybe not run its course entirely, but it's going to take a little bit of a dip here for sure, especially as U.S. military assets begin to be called home. It looks like the Ford super carriers. I'm not saying Ford as in Ford automotive manufacturing. I'm saying Ford as in a class of super carriers that's being named after a president, Gerald Ford. The Ford super carriers look like they're going to be stationed here rather than abroad. It looks like we're not going to use them for projective force, but we're going to use them as sort of maintaining the Canada, US, Mexico alliance and keeping those problems at bay sort of situation. So it doesn't look like we'll be sending those abroad anytime soon. The Nimitz is going to continue to be our projective force on a global scale, but we're already retooling our military. We're downsizing a whole bunch of our mainstream forces. We're expanding in a couple of areas. Marine expeditionary units are being expanded, as are special operations units. The Special Operations Command saw a tripling in, I think, 2 decades in size. So it looks like in the future, the way the U.S. military is going to operate is very quickly quickly and by proxy. So think Syrian involvement rather than Iraqi or Afghani involvement moving forward. Yeah, we're going to use expeditionary forces, get them in quick, do what we need to do, project the force or aid the ally that we need to aid, and then remove quick. That seems to be in line with the 2030 budget spending that the Marines have put forward in their program. They're also going to be retooling for non-Middle Eastern deployments. The Marines their requisitions are already leaning towards South Pacific Island style equipment and requisitions rather than Middle Eastern requisitions. So we can sort of see the pivot there as well as to the focus for the U.S. military moving forward.
I mean, to topple most of the countries, America doesn't even need forces in the country anymore itself. They just need a media.
How about Africa? Africa's being carved up. That's pretty much Africa's fate. Africa either gets unified, which they don't want to do. There's too much resistance internally for that. I know there's a unified Africa movement. Dude, there's so much friction within the continent to do that. There's too many fiefdoms and dictatorships running on the continent for that to be profitable for a bunch of oligarchs. So it looks like slowly but surely Africa's being carved up. China with its Belt and Roads Initiative, the U.S. with its multi-decades operations, they're mostly utilizing mercenaries, but also corporate economic hitman stuff. Look, you go in with the bribe. You don't take the bribe, we send the Marines. If you don't, we send the assassin. If you don't get assassinated, we send the Marines, sort of thing. We're just on step 1 for them. Corporations, IMF loans, World Bank's sort of stuff that we're dealing with in Africa. So they're slowly but surely being carved up. It's pretty much the fate of Africa if they don't get their shit together, which, again, I don't have high hopes for them to do. There's too many competing factors for that to happen. I don't think we're going to see some grand unified strategy coming out of the African continent soon, which is when it needs to happen. Because if you don't get it done soon, Europe, the US, and China, and Russia are going to come in and contractually own most of your shit, which is already well underway. So, proud to be Posh. Thank you for those kind words and those kind vibes. Good on you. I hope you're not a bot, but I'm glad you're out there spreading some love. You're a bot. Iceland will take over eventually. They'll stay quiet and small, and then boom! Once the other countries collapse, they'll start anew. Hey, boss. Hey, boss. I claim the small bit of South Africa that goes into Namibia for the Argentine Empire. Yeah, Iceland has been very quiet. Lots of Africa proxy wars coming up soon then. I mean, there's already a few going. So there's already a few of those, and there's internal conflict. Look at the Eritrean, Ethiopian conflicts that have been going for basically this whole year and span into time immemorial to some extent or another. Yeah, Africa is going to have a rough go of it. What about South America? Oh, geez. They seem splintered, but on the cusp of taking power in many places, so I'm not sure they can do so in time. They're having territorial disputes still. Premarital can probably give us the names of who's fighting who right now. But yeah, I know South America is still like actually butting heads in a lot of ways, and Brazil's fucking shooting themselves in the face again. Brazil could be a bit of a powerhouse if they really got their shit together, but man, I mean, you know, given my attachment to the anarchist milieu, I would like to see Chile and Argentina like get over themselves and sort of start to get along. But Chilean and Argentinian relations are not exactly historically known to be great. They get along sometimes.
But actually, Kai, what about like the BRIC states, like basically Brazil, Russia, India, and China that formed an alliance ago?
They had they could have done something with their finances, but given the rampant economic corruption in Russia and how fucking rigged their system is, that sort of India is the one I would watch. India looks to be trying to take over the cheap manufacturing from China, and they've got the population, they've got the demography, the demographic statistics to actually make that work. So India could become like sort of a quick riser. China, I mean, we know is in the downturn at this point. So there's some potential there for sure. But whether they make the most of it, I mean, that's the thing is China failed to make the transition that they needed to make. And as such, they're kind of fucked. So, let's see.
Yeah, but I mean, with that bloc, it looks like we are going back to having bloc parties again. Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
The Western states, and then we have the BRIC states now, and then we have some like East Asian and African countries working together.
I mean, that was kind of Zehan's point that he was making to those land investors was globalization's over, or at least for the moment. Like the concept of a truly integrated global marketplace that has no borders and spans, it looks like that might be on the way out. Yeah, because it was largely enforced. It was like pushed upon the world by the U.S. hegemony. And as we withdraw from that, as we are already energy independent. We're already independent. Our economy is already not reliant. We're one of the we're the third least integrated economy into the global economy. Our economy doesn't rely on the global economy. And so like you start factoring our energy independence, our economic independence, our land mass independence, and the fact that we already have the trade initiatives that we need locked up, the UK, Canada, Mexico, Japan, and Korea. We're basically sitting pretty, and it was the Bretton Ridge Agreement that basically led to that equalized platform. This is what allowed China to enter the marketplaces as powerfully as they did, was the U.S. enforcement of naval procedures on a global scale, and the fact that we would subsidize all of this using our own trade deficits. And since we are backing away from that, yeah, you start to see that system, I don't want to say collapse, but slow down, become less impactful. And yeah, so you start to see those regional agreements become the norm again, which were always the norm, right? Like we're sort of returning the thing that most of us grew up in, the global economic system that most of us grew up in. The truth of the matter was an anomaly. It was an outlier as a result of U.S. hegemony rising to the surface and enforcing an economic policy and shipping maritime policy after the collapse of the European nation states following World War II. And we're sort of done doing that. We secured our position. We're good. We're coasting. We have the military. Nobody's catching up. We have the energy independence. We have the food independence. We have the trade independence. And so as, the will to be that factor on the global scale has waned within the U.S. psyche, you start to see those threads unravel. And so you start to see the rise of those regional trading blocks again.
Against the US are actually not a good idea. Not work anyways.
Oh, no, we fucking glass anybody who even tried at this point. Look, you can get away with some insurgent shit. You can get away with asymmetric warfare. But if China said, we're going to go to war with you.
No, not a war. Just like economic sanctions.
Oh, yeah. Even then, our economy still, even in downturn, accounts for a huge, huge percentage.
Yeah, but I mean, like most of the points that you want to reach is like creating food insecurities, shortages, and stuff like this, which would not work in America in its current form. Okay. So basically, like the global South cannot do anything against America if they even. If you understand what I mean.
Yeah. I do, and I'm following you, but I'm also I'm trying to multitask here, because nowhere does this say that. You're talking out of your ass again, and Western hegemony, as near as I can tell. Hey, Interbean. Hey, that's always good. Yeah, that just doesn't say that. And 126 million unemployed Americans would be untenable. Right? That's just not doable. That would be approximately 40% of our population. I mean, no offense. If we could run the game we're running with 40% of our population unemployed, y'all should be even more afraid. Right? If a nation state can accomplish what the US has accomplished and only have 60% of their population employed, that's terrifying. But luckily we know that that's utter rubbish. Better look again. U.S. debt clock never lies. Calculators, please. No. Oh, here we go. Oh, I don't have that up. Sorry. Hang on. I've got a different window up there. I was looking at something else. So here we go, everybody. Everybody in unison call End Western Hegemony a bullshit artist, a troll, accuse them of talking out of their ass. So here you go. Let's just do something here. We'll zoom in and we'll highlight this so be really certain. Right in the middle of the screen. So where does this say 146 million people unemployed? Because End Western Hegemony, I will tell you, this is my hard line. From this point out, I will be ignoring everything you say unless you can put up or shut up. Where in this actual unemployed number does it say 146 million? Because I'm reading this and it says 16.5 million. And that's what's on the screen. And yeah, you don't get the unemployment statistics by subtracting the US workforce from the population statistics. That's not how you get employment statistics, you fucking rubberhead. Jesus Christ. Like, this is your own source. This is the kind of shit that streamers really get, like, fed up with. Bro, check your fucking sources. I know what here's your fucking source. It doesn't lie, man. And then you read the source and you're like, this doesn't say what you're saying it says. Amorous, there's dispute as to whether like official unemployed and actual unemployed. So basically there's always a dispute as to like the ones that fall off the unemployment rosters and give up looking for work, the ones that are underemployed and stuff like that. So there's always a statistical variance between official unemployed numbers and what statisticians estimate the actual unemployed number to be. But never is it on an order of magnitude scale. Never are they like, oh, the unemployed number is 16 million and secretly it's 146 million. It's never an order of magnitude. Yeah, yeah, exactly. All those unemployed babies and elderlies, right? You're full of shit. You're full of shit, End Western Hegemony. You literally don't know what you're talking about, and you put up bullshit constantly in chat. You are a bullshit artist, and you're full of it. There we go. I always love a good idiot takedown. It's always a fun time. They tried so hard. Astray, if that's them trying hard, I don't want to know what them phoning it in looks like. Here's an idea. I'm just going to give you a little piece of advice from somebody who does this on a regular basis. Read your source before you cite it. I know that's crazy to anybody who's had any degree of academic experience or professional experience in their life. But it's crazy, I know. When you cite a source, read the source before you cite it. That way, you don't make claims like it's 146 million people unemployed because I don't understand how to read this web page.
So it's not enough to just read a headline?
You know, Viva, I find that reading the headline will do just fine if you're talking to a tanky or your average alt-right chud. You know what? You can get by with the headline. But if you're going to engage with basically most of the people in this community, it helps if you've read the source, because guess what? Most of the people in this community, the first thing they're going to do is check your source. I'm proud of that I've built out to community and organized well enough that the people that occupy these spaces, generally speaking, the first fucking thing they do is verify the veracity of your source. It's like, are you shitting me? Estrella, source, trust me, bro, I know what I'm talking about. Oh, it's like citing QAnon, but even doing injustice to QAnon's BS. James TVJ. Fucking A, James. Yeah, no worries, Amorous. Oh, jeez, about Ireland. Do you have to read the whole source to know the actual context, or a singular sentence, statistic, or paragraph enough to support an argument, says Duffy? I find that what you want to do is skip to the table and not even read the descriptions and or labels and or legend, and just look for a number that seems close to what you're attempting to argue, and then make the claim that that table supports what you're attempting to argue. That way the rest of us can go read your source and have a good laugh at your expense. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh god, he's still trying.
He's still trying. He's still trying, everyone. He's still trying. This motherfucker doesn't understand basic population statistic presentation at this point. I'm sorry, dude. You are sad. Like,
And Western in Germany, I have a question. If you live in a east, like just say a Middle Eastern family that have like 12 family members, and only the patriarch of the family goes to work, does it mean that 11 of these 12 people are unemployed?
according to End Western Hegemony, yes. According to demographers and census officials and anybody who understands basic statistical analysis or even has a lick of common sense, no. Duffy said, what a family of deadbeats. Estrella coming with the fucking numbers. Retirees make up about 16% of the population. Children make up about approximately 24% of the population. Combine them. What's some basic math that we can all do? Let's see. 1 plus 2 equals 3. And then we have 6 plus 4, which equals 10. So that's a 4 followed by a 0. So 40% approximately of the U.S. population actually shouldn't really be gainfully employed. Funny how that works out. Interesting. I wonder what kind of chunk that takes out of your 146 million number. Yeah, Estrella. Also, that website is sus as hell. Not in labor forces also included retired people and students. Oh, Interbeing. Yeah, that is a viable. That's a viable argument that you could make if you weren't starting from if he wasn't starting from a position of absolute dog shit numbers, right? Like you could actually yeah. All right, we could give a plus or minus for that sort of thing, but it's not going to be an order of magnitudes worth of error validation. Yeah. So I mean, that was adorable and all that you attempted to do that. But maybe learn to walk before you start trying to enter ultra marathons and shit like that. I'm just saying. Probably the way to go. Let's see. Cool. All right. Just want to check that. Billy Madison clip. Yeah, you're right. You know what? Yep. You're right. This calls for the Billy Madison clip.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Good call, Duffy. Perfect spot for it. Okay, it doesn't. If I ask Sweet about that website, will I cause him to have an aneurysm? Potentially. Let me just check something really fast. One, I mean, just from a web designer, like from a design aspect, this is probably the worst designed website I've seen in a very, very long time. From a infographic or data analytics presentation point of view, this is horribly designed. Yeah, and there we go. Sources. Sources can be found by mousing over the real-time numbers. So Bureau of Labor Statistics, U.S. Census, IRS, Congressional Budget Office, CBO. I mean, these are OMB, CBO, BEA on that one. Treasury. I mean, these are accurate sources if you wanted that. Yeah, I'm okay with the sources, but holy shit. Oh, lovely. At the bottom of the page, they literally have like gold and precious metal shit attached to it. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Any place you find... Dude, yeah, that would break Sweet a little bit. Any place you find the fucking gold bug people... Yeah, you're gonna cause Swede to have a little bit of an aneurysm, maybe. The gold standard is fucking stupid. It's a bad idea, and I will get Swede on here one of these nights and let him fucking rail from an economist and a financier's point of view. Somebody who's in charge of way more money, protecting way more money than any of us would ever see in fucking 100 lifetimes. We will get Sweet on the line and fucking ask him about the gold standard and watch him lose his fucking mind. but I bought all these coins from Rudy Giuliani, says James. No. Government sourcing itself. James said that's BS. Proof the government is lying to us. Yeah. Oh yeah, Estrella. Those are those are predictive models that website is running off of, and probably very basic predictive models. Like it grew from this to this to this to this, so the predicted growth at that rate is X, that sort of thing, right? This is like high school algebra predictive analysis territory, bro, if I had to guess. Actually, you know what? We could just look at its source code and find out. Let's see. Let's view its source and see what we're dealing with here. Give me one sec. Okay, so that's just that portion of the source. Just a series of arrays being set up there. It's literally based... Jesus Christ. It's literally incrementing based on a static rate that has been set in the code. So, yeah. That's the worst version of it that it could be. Your fourth political theory is spot on. Fourth political theory is one of the dumbest ideas to come out of, like... I mean, we've got Possadism, so I suppose that's definitely stupid as fuck. There's Hoxaism, that's definitely stupid as fuck. But then there's fourth political theory. Liberal democracy plus Marxism plus fascism. Okay, this is fourth political theory. I'm not fucking around. You can look this up yourselves. Fourth political theory, largely based upon the works of Alexander Dugin, a Russian geopolitical strategist who argues for like a new era of Russian hegemony and shit like that, right? Liberal democracy plus Marxism plus fascism equals fourth political theory. This has got to be one of the dumbest goddamn ideas I've heard in a very, very long time.
Sounds like a spot what's wrong question.
Doesn't it, though? Like, one of these things is not like the other. One of these things is doing its own thing. It is literally it has been quoted, it's been listed as inspiration for the rise of far right political ideologies within the Russian sphere of influence within the last like 2 decades, that sort of thing. Maybe even bleeding into European politics to some extent or another. But what it is fascism. It's authoritarianism. Due to some of the aspects and characteristics that they removed from fourth political theory, it's it's an authoritarian system. They aren't fascist by definition, really, unless you use like Umberto Eco's sets of fascistic characteristics. Then they're fascist. But essentially, they're... What was that, Viva?
So they're fascist.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, okay. So the distinction between fascism and authoritarianism, I think, sometimes needs re-emphasized. It's just that sort of thing. Most assuredly, authoritarian as fuck, though. Fascism is up for debate depending on which political science circles you spend the most time in. But the liberal democracy plus Marxism plus fascism part really isn't up for very much debate. Even the people who, God help you, even the people who practice this sort of shit really don't debate this. It is the strangest mashup I've seen in political ideologies, maybe ever. And definitely not internally inconsistent, that will lead to tribalistic infighting within the spheres of influence of itself. I'm sure. It seems super stable. Hey, Mega Princess. Hey, Guillotine. Fourth political theory seems rational to me. Yeah, exactly. Rebranding as if calling it something else doesn't check the same boxes. Fair enough. Hey, let's not get it too ahead of ourselves. Leave the bunker crackheads alone. Hoxaists and Posadas never do shit and therefore are better. I mean, okay, that's fair. I'm okay. Hands are a little rough right now, but a lot of the experimenting that I'm doing, it's not helping the neuropathy. Nothing I'm doing is helping the neuropathy, but I've made some strides in some very interesting areas, shall we say. MAGA Princess, you're on 4 now? Is this? Hang on. When did you have to create this account? Is this? Okay, so this is the January account. All right, cool. Hey there as well. Yeah, we just did a better is a relative term, MAGA princess. Better is a relative term. I'm still crap, but take what you can get, right? You're still not banned. We've checked the role. Your other account isn't banned. Mods have checked it. I've checked it. You're not banned. So, I mean, there's that. And so, fourth political theory is one of the craziest things you can study, quite frankly. It really is up there. It deems mentioning in the same breath as Posadism and Hoxaism. It's as far as sane political ideologies go, it's basically the other end of that spectrum.
Can you speedrun Posadism for me?
Posadism is communism with nuclear characteristics. Basically, Posadists believe, for the most part, in survival of the fittest via communism and glass the world using nukes. The ones who survive are the strongest, and they deserve to survive.
That's genocidal and stupid.
Yeah, well, that's Posadism. Yeah, it's kind of batshit crazy. And of course, End Western Hegemony says to that, dope. Yep. It's pretty much what I expect from someone like you. Welcome, and hey there, Alien Weaponry. I hope you're doing okay.
Did these people ever think about who would win in such a fight?
No, because they think that, like, you know, some Eastern Bloc state is going to take on the U.S. nuclear arsenal. They're idiots, Viva. They're idiots. They have no life experience. Yeah. This is like the quintessential examples of when's the last time you went out and saw grass? Right? Like, for the love of God, you've spent too much time on like some weird Twitter echo chamber if you think that this is a viable stratagem.
Yeah, just thinking, like, the US spends more money on its military than the next 7 countries combined.
Mm-hmm.
And 6 of these countries are allies with the US.
Yeah. It would not turn out well for anybody advocating that actively at a nation state level. It's a goofy fucking idea. So yeah, no, fourth political theory is up there with Posadism. It really is. It's like, hey, what happens if we mash up liberal democracy, Marxism, and fascism? That seems like a totally functional ideology, right? Totally self-consistent and stable. People who survive, people who prepped, nothing to do with strength, not even foresight. Because who wants to live in a nuclear wasteland? Not me. Sit in a bunker till your supplies are gone, then die of radiation poisoning.
Sounds fun.
Sorry, Jason Kiwi. Hey, Ramsey. Ramsey, you would have enjoyed tonight's stream. Jason Kiwi, we just actually had a mod recruitment. We actually just promoted a bunch of community members into modship, or fucking, I should not even say promoted, because quite frankly, it's more of a saddle and harness than it is an actual promotion, having to deal with the fucking chuds and shit in chat and people who advocate for fourth political theory and shit like that, right? We've recently cursed even more people with modship on this channel. But yeah, Wither got mod, Angie got mod, Christina got mod, and I think that's the new 3 is Wither, Angie, and Karina. So
I want only mods so that I can read the deleted messages.
Yeah, you can actually install plugins into your browser to keep those.
I mostly on my phone.
Well, yeah, then you would need that. Yeah, we don't like tanks around here. Somebody do the tanky command. We're not a fan of tanks. And so we're doing coping? Shit, that means, hey, there's a tank. I'm gonna get up and walk around. I'll be back, Viva.
Hey, people.
I'm back. So, yeah. How far did I miss the mark on Tanky's coping? What was I, 10 seconds, 15, 20? Past the end? Yeah, that's never happening. It's literally never happening. So, you know, yeah. Something along those lines. Right on. Hey, radio. Yeah. Shot the whole load. Ah, well, Duffy. It happens. Let's see. Hang on, give me one sec here. Let me pull up a couple of tabs. Cool. I don't know who I feel comfortable throwing all you degens at. Let's see. Yeah, hashtag don't mod Kiwi. Yeah. All right. We're gonna do first. Actually, let me check something. Hang on, before I do anything, let me check something. Cool. All right. I have training tomorrow. Despite this fucked up COVID vaccine shoulder. So yeah. We're gonna raid out to Public. Public's still on. They're good people. And I'm going to explicitly tell Public to ban away if they so choose. Because I don't think a bunch of you motherfuckers know how to behave in non-political spaces. We are going to a non-political space. Public is good people. They are playing a video game. It is a chill area. If you continue to argue, accuse them of being, I don't know, fucking Zionist, fucking Western imperialist or some shit like that, I'm going to encourage Public to just fucking shit can your ass. All right? So behave yourselves when we raid over to Public or GTFO. I'm telling you now. And if Public sends me any fucking messages about any of you fuckers that like to come around here and stir the pot about how you have purposefully fucked with them, trust me. All right? 5:30 p.m. show tomorrow. Bad movie night on the Discord server tomorrow. So I hope to see you guys then. Catch y'all later. Much love. Hope you're as well as you can be. Till next time. There we go. We're clear on that.